All right, we're back to the Pangburn Hangout. We are live. Shit. Jesus.
My cousin to you, like he was just like, "Oh, this is fucking hilarious, dude." I'm like fucking, like fucking around, like just pushing somebody underwater, but fucking yeah,
Oh, wow.
we were both young, and he didn't fucking understand
He
this,
didn't
and like
know.
luckily
Yeah.
luckily this fucking dude was like on the side of the pool. It's like, what the
Oh,
fuck
yeah.
is going on? Jumped in there, threw him off, threw me up, boom. But man, I just remember like going into like a different state at that point.
Fuck.
I remember like having like yeah, I mean, it was basically like I tripped after in my life, and I was like, yeah, that's basically what I did. So I went into a trip.
What up,
Oh,
peeps? There we go. I'll share the YouTube live stream so you guys have it. So, Dal, I put the topic as what is freedom? Is that good for today?
oh, oh, no.
Ooh,
Sorry, I
is this
can't
your
hear you,
convo
buddy.
today, Dal?
What was that?
I can't hear you. Oh, now I can.
Um, so I didn't plan as much for this one as the other one, but
Yeah,
I was
no worries.
listening to like Simone Bolivar quotes or something. Or somebody was talking about her.
Mm,
He did a bunch of stuff on freedom, and it kind of got me. So
cool.
yeah, what I guess we'll stick with the question. What do you guys? How would you guys define freedom? What is freedom?
Whew, it's a very nebulous.
Self-autonomy.
Autonomy.
Mm,
Yeah, I'm autonomous. I'm allowed to do what I want and when I want. And if you're going to come to me and tell me that I can't do something, you need to be able to present an argument for it, and then we can rationally talk about that. That gives me freedom to decide. Now, if I still choose to do something in a way that might be disagreeable, then they have the freedom to obviously do things to me as well that might not work.
but you're married, right? I mean, so obviously, I know there have been times when you've had to do things, but it
It's not a
doesn't really
shotgun
agree
wedding,
with this.
okay? It's not a shotgun wedding, all right? It was a
No,
traditional
no,
marriage.
no, even any sort of wedding, even in a friendship, there are times where you're like, okay, I don't 100% agree with this, but I have to go along with it just because in this sense. I mean,
I still
I don't
did
know,
it. I still chose it. I still choose it, and I'm self-responsible. And now my actions are my own, and I can't blame anybody else.
you say that, but would you have chosen that without outside, uh, without having outside input?
Pressure.
So
Yes.
so once you have outside input, how can you come to this idea of freedom as whatever you want to do? Because once you have any sort of external input, that is
My,
gone.
my
It's gone.
external my external inputs define my internal outputs.
Oh, well, I see that as a rationalization. Just like, so if you wanna get down to the idea of just like pure freedom, it would be you'd be free to make your own choices regardless of anything else that happened around you, right? I mean, that would be,
Yeah, I am.
but you're not, because you do have outside forces that give you input. And once those outside forces give you input, your freedom is fundamentally reduced. Just in a philosophical understanding of what we're talking about. Like at that point, it is reduced.
Sure, philosophically, I don't have free will. It's just an illusion. So how far deep do you want to go? You know. Yeah. But let me specify for your self satisfaction there, Scott. Is I input multiple information, including opposing viewpoints, and with that, then I will decide, when given the illusion of freedom or whatever you want to take this into a metaphysical state, philosophical state. I could say that then I make that decision or that choice based off the many inputs. But if one input was all I got, I can still reject that input and wait for other information to come by and remain agnostic to the point. Yeah. So that still, in alone, gives me the freedom. So to me, it's freedom of choice when it just comes to autonomy. I will do what I want, when I want, however I want. And it seems that I do.
Yeah. Well, what's
a lot here is choice. Like choice is the biggest thing here. Like you have to have, the more choices you have, the more free you are.
Mm-hmm. That's America, baby.
Not necessarily that. I mean, there could be certain situations where the more choices you have, the less free you are.
Give an example.
If you give an example. So if all of a sudden you had, instead of having 5 choices, you had 30 million choices, and you had to sort through all those, the amount of time that it would take to sort through all those choices would be limiting your freedom, just in the fact that you would have to discern what's going on. And this is
that's
when
not true.
When we get into this topic, this is where kind of place that I go.
I would disagree.
I think people sort of fetishize this idea of freedom, of being like, oh, it means I can do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it, and that's how it is. Like, I don't necessarily think I agree with that position.
So this is where I would disagree with you, is that humans are very, very good at deciding what the next move is, knowing that they have 30 million choices. I have probably 30,000 ways that I could put together within the lexicon and words that I know and how I communicate and how I do things right now to you. But I specifically form the ways that I want to do things and talk to you, because I then form habits that keep me open to options, but still keep me moving forward. So those habits are going to define, and those habits can be changed and manipulated and moved so that I don't have to worry about trying to figure out what the best way among all 30 billion possibilities is. I need to move.
Yeah.
Whatever's pragmatic, I'm going to do it.
Once you get into the subconscious, that's when I think you run into the idea. You run into like certain loggerheads of the idea of freedom, you know?
Well, to me, I've decided those habits, and sometimes those habits have been decided for me, and I do have a choice to change them, right? Like when I'm 3 or 4 years old and I'm being taught how to do something, and I don't realize how to do it differently when I get older.
Yeah, you can.
But I still have the choice to change those habits given new information.
Yeah, well, you have the option to, you know. That doesn't mean you'll necessarily be successful in changing that, and that's. Like I said, I mean, in this kind of conversation, I just get down to like real.
No. But I vehemently disagree with what you're saying. Vehemently disagree with what you're saying, because here's why. I'm going to present you with a world that you're going to live in for the rest of your life, and you've got 5 ways this world could play out for you, or you have almost an infinite combination of the ways this world could play out for you. Which one are you taking?
I would take the infinite.
Correct, because you can design it for yourself and create it for yourself and literally do whatever the fuck you want, knowing that you can make it to whatever you want. So we already have this in front of us.
No, well,
there already is a billion choices.
At that point, you made a leap of logic, because you said If we had 5 or an infinite, you said, okay, if it's infinite, that's because we have a choice to affect it. I don't know if that's actually the case. And that's
Okay, not infinite. Infinite is a made-up word. 999 billion. How about that?
Yeah, even 999 billion. The idea is like all of a sudden we have this like true ability to affect what's actually going on. I think we have a certain amount of choices that fall into line with
Our physical limits and other things. Of course, yes. Granted that there are physical limits and laws that govern this world that you cannot change. Sure, yes, but still, of those laws and within those laws, you still have 999 billion ways your life can play out based off your actions. You can go to one coffee shop and meet the fucking love of your life, or you can go to another coffee shop and meet your fucking enemy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always like hindsight kind of stuff, though.
Kind of, yeah.
We can look at something in hindsight, and like, oh,
but if you know them bitches are fucking fine at that one shop, right? And that other one's full of fucking snobs. You know, you might want that choice.
Fucking barista is fucking knocking, so I'm gonna go there. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? They didn't give you the choices.
Barista.
I don't
Dude,
know.
Only in our generation, barista bitches. What the fuck?
It is
Bro, let me tell you.
I really do think the idea.
Oh fuck! Like, here comes Bruce.
Quote unquote freedom is like fetishized in the United States, where it's like, oh man, everything's about freedom this and freedom that, and it's like it really is at its fundamental basis a nebulous concept.
A sexual fetish? Is this what you're saying, Scott?
No, I just think it's
freedom is a sexual fetish.
Oh my god, I'm so free right now.
It's a nebulous concept. Like, there's no like, you can't necessarily put your finger on what
the dog whistle that time.
Like, you know, that's sort of my point. Like,
so
you know, because we can put our finger
now.
on a lot of different things, but freedom, it's just so fucking like it's all over the place.
William Wallace makes me want to nut.
All over the place.
Freedom.
Dude's like, so the only thing I care about is being free, and I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean, dude? Like,
it is a platitude. It's the top of the platitude hierarchy.
Dude,
freedom.
It's fucking crazy, dude. It's crazy.
Like, I feel like it's up there. I wouldn't say number. Like existence, I think.
Yeah,
I want to be alive.
Well, I think.
I'm just talking at the platitude hierarchy.
Yeah. I think existence. I think existence. You could put that into an axiom, which would separate it from platitudes. But that's just.
Oh well. Bruce, what does being free to you mean? What does freedom mean?
Jesus.
Exactly what we were expecting you to say.
It sounds like a
trap.
So loaded.
Sounds like a system.
Mm-hmm. I think that. No, we're still waiting.
Oh.
Tomorrow we go to an ultrasound just to make sure things are cool. We're basically pushing it out as far as we can, but you know.
Is this going to be your third?
Fourth.
Fourth? Oh man,
yeah.
Nice, dude.
Yeah.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah, we're excited,
That's
but
awesome.
it's just been such a. We're waiting and trying to avoid this. Yeah. This, you know, hospital induction process or C-section. Yeah. So, but it's still early. But you know, we'll really tell. I guess what we're going to do a week from now. I think would be we'll probably have a baby by a week from now. I think. But we'll see.
What is it about the smell of a baby? How does a baby even smell that way? It's
what?
Like fucking like
what's wrong with you, Scott?
Hot buttered buns. Like, why does a baby just smell so good? It's fucking
what?
Only your baby does. No,
if you smell the baby when it first comes out, it is not.
I don't think he's talking about when it first comes out.
Yeah.
Oh.
No,
Oh,
no. I
sure.
watch my wife get a episiotomy. So yeah, that's
Fucking,
some
Yeah, I
fun
know.
coming out. Like
oh
that's
god,
fucking
or a
rough.
C-section, dude. It's like a
But you
fucking
know, like,
C, and in that C, you're pulling out your child, and you're like,
dude,
ah.
but
What?
the first time you really get to hold her and like you hug her and you smell her and like, oh my god, man, like I don't
Babies are the
understand how
best.
that's even possible.
Hmm.
Feels
There's
Yep.
better when the
something
child
there's
support's all
something
paid
about the
up.
smell of a baby. It's fucking
Yeah,
holy
that's true.
shit, dude.
Yeah,
There's
fresh
definitely a
human.
smell
It's
of
fresh
baby
skin.
powder, but
Smell of a
baby powder helps the smell. But yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, babies are, yeah, they have an innocence to them that is something that people just fawn over.
Yep.
That's. But
Well,
freedom, I think the reason why freedom, so number one, the term fetishize is a dog whistle to the left. Are the only people I ever hear say it. But on the other side, of freedom, I think the reason why it's what you would call a platitude or discussed ad nauseum with no real info is because the trend toward that direction is what people want as opposed to a trend in the other way. And even if people don't want to admit that they are free or not free, sorry, they still love this idea, and at least in America, of like, you do you, do what feels good. Don't let anyone hold you back in any way, and that is freedom, within the parameters that they feel is okay. So, I mean, because without that, you would say, well, what's giving us no freedom? Well, then you have to yield your own choices to something else, and that becomes a problem. And that's it's not people aren't actually thinking about what that means, politically. They're just saying, I would rather be, able to make choices every day about what I feel than have to navigate these, you know, um, possible limitations imposed on me by someone else. So,
Yeah.
but what it means to
So
me, I mean, there's freedom in what sense? Because I have a worldview that says, I'm only so free as I'm allowed to be free, but that's a different. It's not in the world. As far as politics go, I tend in that direction. Freedom.
I agree with you 100% of that. And the one thing I would say is I think in the West there is this idea of the primacy of the individual. And I don't think anybody is arguing that. Even Bernie Sanders, like I've never seen him say something that specifically says, "Hey, there's not the primacy of the individual." He might be arguing like, "Hey, there we might need to do these certain things differently with these specific functions that we have." But I think it always comes down to pretty much in the Western world is the supremacy of the individual, and I think that's what you're getting at. Is that's well, a lot of times when I hear people talk about freedom the way you did, it sounds to me as the greater idea that you're getting at is the primacy of an individual over the primacy of a group. In the entire Western world, through Europe, everywhere, there is the primacy of the individual. That is the fundamental thing that has taken over. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You do have certain places where they'll be like, okay, well, maybe we should try and like do these certain things for the community, and so those kind of things are coming back. Not in the same sense, like if you look at like China, where China is like, I mean, it's wholly in the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
direction. Yeah, I mean, it's like that's like to me, that's the difference. And because there's got to be like middle ground between these things, and I don't think the middle ground is between the United States and China right now. I think the middle ground is probably like China
Yeah.
coming like 70% over and like meeting the United States like 30% over. But I
I
do
don't
think the
think
United
people can.
States could like benefit from having a bit more of a concern of the
Yeah, yeah.
populace, which is I think the exact reason that Trump was popular because Trump was a populist president, and he's like, oh no, it's got to be about the people. So that's what he actually ran on, is running on being an idea of being like, hey, let's bring the people of our country together. So it's still an idea of like a communal thing, you know. And I think like obviously people responded to that like gangbusters, because even having the understanding, and we know it has to be the case that the individual is the prime agent. We do have to take into place the realm of the community, you know. So we can't get rid of the individual. Like, that's obviously a recipe for disaster. That's going to be a terrible outcome. But I do think we have to make a bit more room for the communal in the United States.
Yeah, I don't know. See, well, I would say yeah, maybe that's true. But I would say I don't think that there's like, I don't think you can say that like the United States is fundamentally the baseline for freedom. Like as you say, like it's between America and China.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
America's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I think
agreed.
there's.
Yeah.
I also
Agreed.
think that the populist sort of thing became popular because I think a lot of people have resigned themselves to realizing that, like, okay, we really have no choice here. We got to play ball. So I'm gonna play ball with the populist, side that I want to play ball with. The only people that are naive enough at this point to be like, we don't have to do that, are the idealists, communists, or libertarians. I think everyone else at this point in 2021 have resigned themselves to the fact that, like, well, probably not going to be free like that we think we're going to be. So let's just choose something that would represent us in some way. And also I think it's a bit of a game, because I don't think the person that's elected, or even the party that's elected, tends to shift the freedom goal as far as legislation is concerned very much. It just shifts the conversations around things, but and an overall like atmosphere and tension. I don't even know if it, like, let's just say you were Amish. You never turn the TV on, right? I don't think you're looking at a situation where you're like, man, the United States has swung in the past 10 years. It's like, I don't think there's, it's not been like that.
I also don't think you're free in an Amish lifestyle.
No, that's
different. That's actually
it's voluntary freedom.
Dude, you're free in an Amish lifestyle to do as many chores as you wish.
You have the freedom to choose.
They'll send you to the city
to do chores.
To go do whatever you want. No, they'll send you to the city. If you wish to go live in the city, you can, or you can come back when you're of age, and they give you that chance.
Yeah. There's
that's the freedom,
or you can come back home.
Well, Rumspringa lasts for 3 months. So basically,
it's not that long. It's not that long.
So basically, you take a child who's brought up in an entire community and be like, okay,
16.
we're gonna give you a month to go out here, and like, are you gonna throw away your entire community that you've like lived in? And that's fundamentally
depends on how hot the barista is.
Well, it's fundamentally an unfair question. Like, there's no way somebody's just gonna be like, oh, my brother, my sister, everybody that I've ever known, everybody that I've ever loved and cared about, I'm just gonna throw away because I had a good time on fucking,
Well, have they tried a cell phone?
There's freedom. What's
the ratio of people who leave?
I'm sure it's minimal.
It's actually around 50% last time I checked.
50%.
Mm-hmm.
They become Mennonites.
Jesus Christ, dude, that's fucking way higher. I would have thought like 0.001%.
Yeah, I think there's discipline. There's freedom and discipline. I'm not the only person that says that. I mean, it's sort of especially since you're given some choice, you're not held like a dictator. So, establishing routine, discipline, order, and rules, gives you freedom. It's a different sort of freedom. It's not this.
There's
Like,
all
okay,
different,
that's the
different
difference.
kinds of freedom.
Yeah,
too.
it's sort of like it's like sending someone out to the wolves, or preparing them. Like you could leave someone to fend for themselves, or you can give them, things to live by that are quote unquote rules that would make you not free. And that would be better in most cases than just saying like, see you later. Or you can give them, go figure it out.
Even with that, is there a certain amount of freedom that you could say, like, instead of having a certain insurance policy, I can go to any hospital and get care. Will be taken care of. There's a certain amount of freedom in that, right? But then the other argument will be like, oh, but my freedom is there because I need to be able to choose what plan I want that limits these specific hospitals that I can go to. So you have these, even in that same argument, you have these two factions of what you could consider freedom fighting over each other. Because to me, it seems like it'd be pretty fair if, like, no matter what happened, I can go to any doctor, any hospital, and just be taken care of. But I can't do that. I've got to look at the people who are in my specific network and go through and do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's what it starts to get. Freedom. It's freedom.
Yeah.
You have freedom, or only insofar as when you're not imposing on another, and that's where it gets. That's where it gets hard to define.
Exactly.
But
yeah,
I think the whole
when
thing
you
is
get
just
like
trying to be as free as
libertarian
possible. Yeah. People are trying to be as autonomous, or at least feel that they have the ability to make decisions.
That's sort of what I was going to go to, like the idea of the primacy of the individual over the primacy of the group. So, and you even mentioned it earlier, Bruce. Like, it's sort of like you said, communists or libertarians. And what's interesting about both those groups is, even communists, the long-term outcome of the system that they want to put in place is that there's no government. Is that there's no longer any government. Same thing.
No,
with
that's anarchy.
libertarians.
That's not communism.
No, that is communism. No, and now if you read Karl Marx,
depends on like
Marx
who you're reading.
clearly,
Marxism or state-sponsored communism.
Communism is when they want the state to be in control of everything.
No. So if you read Karl Marx in the Communist Manifesto, the entire point that he was trying to make was like, here are these steps that we need to take that we can get to the point where we have no government. And that's sort of the interesting point about
is Karl Marx in favor of communism though?
Karl Marx, I don't. He's been dead for 150 years. I don't fucking know, dude.
Yeah,
in that book he wrote, was he promoting communism?
We called it the
Communist Manifesto. Yeah, I mean that was
a lot of communists try to. They promote communism under the guise of anarchy, but it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
It's not. They're either stupid or promotes.
But you could also have Gavin McInnes, who started the fucking Proud Boys, who turned into a bunch of fucking shitheads who were doing a bunch of goddamn ridiculous shit. So that doesn't mean fucking anything.
Well,
like, I don't know what any of that means. Who's the Proud Boys?
Don't worry about it. The red hair
of American bullshit.
Gavin McInnes started a joke about a fucking thing, and then it turned into like these bunch of shitbags taking it serious. And it's like my point.
It's a very nationalistic movement.
Like somebody could write something with one intention, and you could have a certain amount of people who take that thing in another intention and do something different with it. That doesn't negate what that first person did.
So the initial.
I'm willing to go out on a limb and say Karl Marx would not have approved of Lenin and Stalin.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. Even in the manifesto, if you've ever read it, which I have, it initially discusses a move to socialism, and then they hope to then move into communism. But that initial socialism movement is very much state sponsored. So, or state run. And it's sort of like a utopianistic ideal to think you ever get to communism.
It is.
So I don't think anyone who's honest really wants socialism either.
But I do think Ayn Rand and fucking having Gulch or Galtsville or whatever it was called. I mean but
Ayn Rand didn't write a political ideology. She wrote fiction.
Yeah, exactly. But then who was the guy? There was
Rothbard.
Yes, so he wrote like all
Murray
the philosophy
Rothbard
for her. Yeah, but it's still at the same time, like, you know, you have people like Rand Paul or fucking
Rand is like somewhere in between at this point.
Well, I mean, if he's always talking about like fucking Ayn Rand and all this shit, and like, oh, it's got to be the takers versus the givers, and like, to me, like, it's just as fundamentally wrong as the other side, and that's, I don't know, man. I just can't get over it. I just see like both sides doing the same things wrong over and over and over again. It's like watching a goddamn circus of fucking idiots just like throwing fucking oranges back and forth at each other. It doesn't make any goddamn sense to me.
Well,
and you can go back to like George Bush, like fucking Barack Obama. It's
called
like,
politics. It's not supposed to make sense.
Dude, like the exact same arguments they make back and forth happen every single time. No matter who changed, it's the same argument that's being made over and over again, and just, man.
I find it really strange that there are even different arguments.
Change.
Do you think it's strange that people disagree?
That people disagree? I don't think that's
it's really weird if you think about it.
No, I don't think so.
Because surely,
natural.
I mean, what? Like, two people look at the sky, they should both agree that it's blue, right? So why are some people saying it's not? It doesn't make any sense.
Why should they both agree that it's blue?
Exactly. Well, they should because it is. But my point is, it's really strange that people look at the same reality but see it differently.
No. Well,
that's not really what people disagree about.
Yeah, it's not something you disagree about, because like you could take the same people. Say you have these two primitive people. They look at the sky. They both see the sky's blue. But then they also look at a bush, and they see a bush move a specific way. And one's like, oh, that's a panther. And the one that's like, oh, no, that was just a breeze that came through.
That's weird. That's weird. Why does
a long time ago, the motherfucker said it was a panther. Lived.
Why does one think it's an animal and one think it's the wind?
We have different perspectives, I would say, and freedom. We have enough freedom to make the wrong choice.
But isn't it strange that, like, they're both human beings? Why don't they both jump to the same conclusion?
Well,
they're both autonomous creatures that have different experiences.
Worldview.
In your brain, you're gonna have these things called neurons, and your neurons are gonna line up differently than the motherfucker next to you.
Hold on, that's what I mentioned to Bruce earlier. It's like that's why the fundamental is the primacy of the individual. I mean, that's like what it all comes down to, and then you have to like work into group aspects from there. But the primacy of the individual is everything.
It's not to communists. To communists, it's all about group rights, not individual rights.
Well, it's not all about that, right?
The group comes before the individual in communism, though.
Right, but to say that, just one sec, Scott.
Yeah,
just to say that it's all about it's just a really bad reading of that system. But I just want to read what Brad Becker said on YouTube. He had something to put in. Freedom means having our inalienable rights to life, liberty, property, and pursuit of happiness protected from the force of others and government, according to objectivists. And he says he agrees. Do you guys agree with that? Or
As far as the United States goes, I would.
Well, I mean, I think everything he listed is objective, and that's a problem. Like,
well, we agree that it is. That's the issue. That's the thing. We all agree that.
Yeah, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. These are all things that will definitely be subjective.
Well, they're subjective.
Experiencing it.
Yeah. So here's a weird thing. Someone was misusing or people have been misusing objective a bit when applying it to morality, and they're saying that like, oh, if your morality has an objective, then it's an objective morality, and I'm like, no, motherfucker, just stop using it that way. I just needed to say that out loud because I think when someone uses the term objectivists, I'm not sure Brad's meaning that everything he's saying here is an objective representation of freedom. But I would suggest to Brad that he stops using the term objectivists, or because I know what you're meaning is people who maybe object to like the general rule or something, like people who are objecting. But yeah, I think it's gonna possibly get across the wrong meaning in circles of philosophy.
Yeah, because objectivism in philosophy means what you can observe.
Well, he said life, liberty, property, and pursuit. Yeah, pursuit
of happiness. Like guaranteeing 7.5, 8 billion people the rights to property is a little.
Well, they have a right to property, but that doesn't mean they have a right to pursue property.
That's the point, Bruce. It's pursuit. Like, how do you fucking quantify that?
Well, you create equal opportunity, not equal outcome. That's how.
Yeah, I would agree.
But what happens if somebody's outside of your specific group that says, "Hey, I don't feel I'm getting equal opportunity"? You just say,
talk about it, and
everything that we've looked at that says you're getting equal opportunity, so I don't care.
So and that's called a social justice warrior, and they can
so
go.
You just have to,
no.
Here's what I would say.
We can talk about it, but say you have a group of 100 people, and 80 of those people are saying one thing, and 20 of those people are saying another. To say that all of a sudden, just because 80 people are saying it, that it's actually right.
Right. So
I don't think you're correct.
Yeah. So the thing is,
that's the problem.
So the thing is that whoever's making the claim of whatever, we test it to see if we can demonstrate their claim. So if they're going to claim, well, I don't feel as though I have equal opportunity to this person. Now, if they can demonstrate that, then they don't. But if they can't demonstrate it, they do. So it just comes down to claims being demonstrated.
That is a fundamental problem. But with politics, feelings play a huge part. It's not like the French Revolution didn't happen because people didn't feel a certain way.
Yeah, but is that what you want?
No, it's not the moral, but the French Revolution, I bring that one up specifically because it specifically was these royals doing fucking horrible fucking shit to the peasants. And the peasants were like, no, we're not going to fucking take this anymore. And that's when they had to do something at some point to rise up against it. And it's
that's fine.
It's weird, and that's once you get into the realm of politics. Like, I do think like it becomes sort of an art. That's why like political science is considered more of like an art than an actual like hard science.
Well, you're talking about I think ultimately at the fundamental level, you're talking about the difference of taste.
Not necessarily taste. Like, I guess I think about like Black Lives Matter, like, because you could have certain people who we could all talk to and be like, hey, that's a reasonable person, and they had this specific opinion on it. And we can talk to another person, it's a completely reasonable person, they had a different opinion on it.
Yeah.
And we can all see that they're reasonable people, but they have different opinions on it based on their personal experience. And that's where the art when I see it's art, it comes from.
Yeah, so I'm saying the reason why I said taste is because some people will find Black Lives Matter tasteful, some will find it distasteful, and their reasoning may be based on whatever thing they could have possibly thought up or thought they think or whatever.
Yeah.
But ultimately they come to that conclusion. But I think one ought to be able to give a demonstration as to why their taste or what they want for their country is better than the next person, or even with regards to freedom.
Absolutely.
Demonstrate your damn claim. In other words.
Yeah.
It does come to be a problem when you have a certain person's base get a couple 100,000 signatures from some social justice warriors that think that trans people need to have their own bathrooms, or black people are not being treated fair in a certain thing, so now you need to be able to put in a system where they are not only kind of have this it's not even equalization, it's more just like they have a step up, right, amongst all other races, right? And then you're just waiting for the next race to do the same. And they get like a couple 100,000 signatures, and the politician goes, well, that's my base. I'm going to speak for it. I'm going to make this a political movement. I'm going to make it so I can get rehired. I'm going to make it so I can get a buck, and I'm going to introduce some bills. The next thing you know, you have this type of put in place that treats now they've not been treated so well in the past, and now they're being treated better than all other groups. Right? Is that a valid argument for equalization? Are you trying to adjust the scales on your output, and then when does that system stop when your scales are finally what you quote unquote call?
Well, I
Just
say,
Can I say something?
if that's the case being
the problem
made,
that I have with this.
Well, if that's the
social
case
justice.
being
Guys are
made,
lacking
are the people in these positions? Do they have more spots in positions greater than their relative percentage in society? Because if they don't, I don't know.
It doesn't matter. That shouldn't
It-
fucking matter.
No,
The
it
percentages
doesn't.
in society are like really.
That
It
shouldn't
does
fucking matter. No, it
Because-
doesn't. You shouldn't have to.
because-
I shouldn't have to fucking
because
hire a
because
black guy
because
because I don't have
because-
black guys in my fucking business.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
that
a
doesn't
little
make sense.
crazy.
no guaranteed. But if you don't recognize that businesses fucking hire people because
Can I say something?
my dad owned this place, like that kind of shit is happening every fucking day.
Yeah, Nivik.
all
Nivik.
over
Yeah.
the fucking
The reason-
planet.
Let's hear
The
from
reason
Nivik.
why-
Nivik, welcome
the reason
back.
why-
Just
And it's
just
not
wait
a
on, dude.
meritocracy.
Let's do the niceties. Welcome back,
I
Nivik.
think they're lagging a little.
The
To
reason
be
why
fair, I think they're
the reason
lagging.
why their argument is good is because of America's success. That's America, because it was diversity along mindset of different people from the beginning. America, when it first started out, it was very radical. America was a radical idea, and that to people of
I'd agree.
of elites and monarchs didn't want that to happen. That was an affront to them. They didn't. That was the issue that they had, and they wanted to stop that. Race it clouds things up. It's more of a tool, but diversity along other lines is still diversity. It doesn't have to be race. It could be of different views, like what he was saying. Brain cells line up differently, and people are therefore different. That race thing, it triggers people to think like they're categories. They're people are people, and they all have different minds. But that was what the American origin was in the beginning. Was people of diversity of different viewpoints, and it worked out.
All right, thanks, Nivik. What were you saying there, Scott?
I was gonna say I do want to say, Grim. I think there's God damn it! I just lost my fucking train of thought.
This is what happens, fucking pot smoker.
God damn it! No. I had it until that last fucking statement that I thought about, and it's like it's gone.
Isn't that the worst? There's a reason why they call it a brain fart. It's like what worse title could you give it? Brain diarrhea, I suppose.
God.
Well, I was talking about black. I was talking about no, it's at what's it called? It's talking about no, it's called not affirmation. What's the program that got put in place?
Affirmative action.
Affirmative colors.
Affirmative action.
I make a joke. It is hard because when you do have this bar that people have to hit, right? And then how do you prove when you got a black applicant and you've got a white applicant or whatever, Chinese and Mexicans, doesn't matter, and you don't give it to the black guy and there's no black people in your business?
It's America.
You get a knock on the door.
Ignorant, illiterate serfs and peasants. That would never work. That's America.
No offense, black guy.
Yeah, well,
That's
you
America.
don't want to fucking work there.
Ignorant serfs and
FYI.
peasants. Of the people, by the people, for the people rule. What the fuck is that? That's craziness. That's crazy talk.
But to say that I didn't hire the guy because he was
a king
black,
and
right?
a
when you can clearly show
nobles are
that this other person cut the bar better than this other person, then I think that's when it's ridiculous.
You're not hearing what I'm saying.
No.
I'm saying that was America's argument, and people thinking like serfs.
Hold on. So that was the point I was getting to. So do you truly think that the United States is a meritocracy? Because I don't think so. Everything I've seen. Do you think the people who are the best suited or the best people always rise to the top? I don't think that's the case. No, I think there's a lot of factors that there are people being held down all over the place that we are not actually experiencing the best and the brightest of our country.
Sure, but do you think that those people do not have a path to be treated equal?
I think there are certain people. I think there are certain people who don't have that path. Absolutely, yeah.
Do you not have the path to be treated equal?
Well, I don't think it's the fundamental principle or the mass majority, but I do think there are people who have drastic value who don't ever get to contribute.
Sure, granted, but do they not have a path? Do they not have a path in America?
Well, it depends on
who. Be
treated
equal.
It depends on who they are. Like,
anybody.
That's a thing.
Fucking anybody.
We aren't created equal, and that's like if you're born to a coal miner in West Virginia, you do not have the same prospects as if you're born to Beyonce and Jay-Z. Like
West Virginia
to take the like extreme fucking extreme. No, it's not non sequitur. I'm showing the extremes, but
there's only one person that's going to be born to fucking, or a few people that are born to Beyonce and Jay-Z. So no, you don't get that opportunity. Sure.
Okay. I could take it. I could take it way down. It's way different than somebody who's born from from somebody who's a coal miner their entire life. Their daddy was a coal miner, and their daddy's was a coal miner.
They have a chance. They have a chance to go to a college.
Hold on.
To go then get a job.
Hold on. Versus somebody somebody's kid who was born as a banker. I worked at Chase Bank my entire life. I would bet goddamn fucking money that kid who is born with a background in some sort of banking is probably going to do better than a kid who is born up with this like
what is better?
Daddy's
no.
is going to be.
Well, yeah, that's exactly. Absolutely true. Yeah.
There's nothing
what
wrong with that. That's normal,
that's
though.
Bullshit.
People
go
want
ahead,
their
dog.
kids to.
Go ahead, dog. That's bullshit.
No.
Well, no, yeah. The idea is that
you got a bunch of rich kids who don't do shit. You got a bunch of coal miners who will go to college and find more value in their life than that fucking rich kid banker or whatever. And probably inspire more people. Go ahead, dog. Let's let dog speak.
I grew up on fucking food stamps, my man. So this is where I'm coming from. I'm not not just saying shit out my ass.
Same here.
Go ahead, dog.
Opportunity, I be every motherfucker out there.
Dog,
yeah,
what did you have there?
Yeah. So can you hear my mic?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, so the idea is that if you take two people of the same, that are essentially clones of each other, right, and you put one in a very, very rich, powerful family, right, with a lot of connection. As a matter of fact, they don't even have to be that rich, as long as they're connected, right? And you put another person in a family that is not connected, right? The person who's in a connected family, right, is going to be better off, right, than the person who's not in the connected family, right?
Not necessarily generally better off, though. From an economic, this is what Bruce was trying to get at. From an economic perspective, sure, but if you're in like if you're growing up with like all the economic advantages, which is a true advantage, of course. But you have a terribly abusive home, and it stifles your ability to do or think anything good because you're just trying to survive in your first 17, 18 years of life. So if we're talking about general good, I think we need to go fundamentally deeper than money, people.
Yeah, I agree, man.
No, but the idea is just that. But the idea is just that if all things being equal, right? If the parents in the rich family work like more, but make a lot more money and are more well connected, right? The idea is that they're always going to be better off.
Yeah,
I don't understand that.
I would actually make the argument that kids who are born up who are raised in more affluent households with parents who are more responsible probably have older parents.
No, but see, you put it on
so nothing can be done. It's just that people are lazy. So nothing can be done. It's really that people are just lazy.
No, it's not. It's not that people are lazy.
I mean, that's the argument, right?
Even you can make the argument that even on the wage distribution scale, you're going to see people who are higher on the wage distribution scale who are having children later, who they're going to have more money, they're going to have better resources, and they're going to be able to take care of their children better than people who are on the low scale. And that is, I think that's pretty fucking obvious, because there's, people who are having kids at 16, 17 years old, and those aren't the people who are CEOs and shit. Those are the people fucking living a hard goddamn life. And CEOs, that's the kind of guy who'd be like, oh, I've been making money my whole life, and okay, I'm 30, I'm gonna have some kids now.
Having kids is a choice, though.
You will actually see a distribution based on like how much money people make as where their kids lie.
Why in some countries it's just rich and poor? How'd that happen?
Because most countries don't have the mobility between classes like we do. The class is just gargantuan.
No, that's all countries.
The United States distribution is not nearly as bad as most places in the world.
My point is it's deliberate. That's not an accident.
No,
that didn't just happen,
man. No, it's not deliberate, man.
People don't try to have a class divide. Don't want a class divide in where people don't want a threat. That's
not what's going on.
People don't like competitive threats.
Yeah,
and they do deliberately class divide one segment and have one. They don't do that in other countries.
You just don't see it, man. It has nothing to do with people deliberately wanting something. It has to do with the way things are actually working in society. And I get it's an easier explanation to just say, hey, that's because people want it this way.
Well, that's how history was. That's how it was throughout history. People didn't want upward mobility. They did things to not have upward mobility for people to compete.
No, dude. If you're looking,
it's feudalism,
and that's what you think was actually going on. Yeah, dude. I mean,
feudal serfdom.
I think you need to go back and look at history again. That's not what was going on.
Yeah, you're born poor, you die poor. That's what's supposed to happen.
Everyone has been poor throughout all of history.
Yeah, and it's been and a lot of times people moved upward. They get from under it, and then they
not a lot of times.
No, I mean, yeah, no, I'm just saying, like,
Not a lot of times. It's a very minimal number
Only
of
until
times.
recently.
Most people have been poor forever.
Already has been.
No, I'm talking about generation kind of thing. I'm talking about like when people were fighting to
Yes,
because everybody's been oppressed. I'm just saying, everybody at
well,
one point's been oppressed, and they got from under oppression.
You're making a specific claim that those people who are now at the point where they have money, who they are actively trying to oppress everybody. That's where you're wrong, dude. Like there's no two ways around it.
Well, it's
Like,
easier to have a society that way, so you don't have to be overthrown.
You're trying to make a.
Why don't you go oppress yourself?
That makes zero fucking sense. Like you're saying, all of a sudden people get this power, and once they have that power, the only thing that they're going to do is try to oppress everybody else. Like you don't really. It's like you don't understand what's going on. You're just like looking at everything in a sense of like.
That's not a bad idea. Why not do that?
No, because
there's no such thing as oligarchs.
If you're looking at human existence as a matter of a power balance,
you run a business. You don't want the competition.
Wrong, dude. You've got the whole thing wrong.
An oppressive business of oppressive competition.
That's not.
Yeah, you don't want the competition.
What's that got to do with the government oppressing people, though?
My business is oppression. It pays a lot of money. Said nobody ever.
People are innocent.
What am I, the fucking India fucking tea trading company over here? I'm just trying to run a business.
Greg, when you're running that business, is your specific purpose to suppress people? Is that what you're doing? Is that like when I'm doing this, my specific purpose is to suppress people?
Yeah,
I'm not British. I'm not British or Chinese enough, so I can't even think like that.
That's the point. I mean, you're making these like grand gestures. Of,
yeah,
like,
when you're a serf,
like,
you were
everything's
to be a serf the rest of your life. People revolted against serfdom, and after serfdom, they took in slavery. And slavery, you didn't have any rights. They made it worse.
No.
Especially in modern day, you don't
serfs weren't even serfs 1,000 years before, so it doesn't even matter.
They were under their lords, that happened, and they couldn't do anything.
How about 100,000
without the permission of their lord?
How about 100,000 years before? So,
and after serfdom was overthrown,
no matter how you're getting down to it,
the ideology of inequality when it is after serfdom was overthrown, it transferred into slavery, and it made it made it worse. Instead of you having rights as a serf, where you had rights, slaves didn't have rights. So they deliberately, strategically made it harder for you to ever get out, and you were owned.
No.
Yeah, slavery's not worse than serfdom.
Can I help you?
Let him.
Can I help you? Can I help you?
Hang on, man. Even if you disagree, try and let the guys finish where you say no, and then say no, because it's getting crazy cacophony of no, yes, no.
Okay. Go ahead.
Even if you disagree, try and
just be pointed.
Yeah, just pin it and keep get ready for the next one. Go ahead, Nivik.
I was just saying that it went from serfdom to slavery, and that was about oppressing people. They made it worse. It was the ideology of inequality transferred from serfdom after it was revolted, and it went into slavery.
Who was oppressing people, and
they made it worse. Well,
okay, so let me help you. Can I just help you? First off, it was community. That was step one, agricultural era, things like that. Then it turned into a type of slavery that came about with feudalism. Okay. And then Pope Gregory came along and he came up with a type of serfdom, working underneath lords and ladies. And that's where that came about. After that came a system into new worlds where they were going to go harvest the lands of the ignorant and created antebellum slavery, which is a different type of slavery than the old school slavery. So that was actually the turn of events of modern history.
And then after slavery,
Nivek, stop. Bruno, next.
And then the Industrial Revolution happened, and then came the idea of 9-to-5 jobs.
Well, Bruno.
Yeah,
Bruno
I think
started.
Bruno saying something there.
I wasn't actually saying anything.
Oh,
I think
Grim,
Mace-
it might have been
Okay.
me. Grayman's lagging out.
I thought
heard
somebody was
robots.
trying to
I
make
heard
an
robots from
argument
Grim.
too. Yeah. Sorry.
Are we talking about the differences between serfdom and slavery?
No,
After,
well,
Yes.
I guess now we are.
after serfdom was indentured servitude in India.
Yes. So,
Of Indians and
so
cool and
Nivek is
Asians.
saying serfdom led to slavery.
No, wrong.
Okay, Bruno, go ahead.
Elaborate.
If you're talking about black slavery, so Africans, that was due to so the Africans didn't have a prison. They didn't have a way back then to
Wait, back when? Because slavery has been around a long bloody
it's been
time.
around. We're
Hold on,
talking about
antebellum.
Stop.
Antebellum slavery.
Stop.
No, transatlantic.
When I say
guys, let Bruno finish.
God.
Let him finish. Like, don't
when I say
interrupt
back
him.
then, I'm talking about the transatlantic slavery, right? Like I know slavery's been around, and I know that stuff.
African slavery started a long time before the transatlantic.
Yes, I know with the Arabs, I know
Mace,
that, but I'm talking about the
stop.
transatlantic slavery. Just relax and listen to me, man. So, they didn't have a prison system to sort of treat criminals, right? To sort of put criminals away and those who are sort of, against society. So they'd have resorted to selling the slaves to the white men after the first encounter in 1428 and all that. So it was purely economical, right? It started as that, we don't have a place to keep the slaves, we're going to sell them to you. And then it became an economical thing where tribes go on raids. So, for example, the current country called Benin, right? It used to be called Dahomey. The chief was living on £250,000 a year back in the 16th century. And that's equivalent to £51 million right now from selling people. So they would just go on raids and capture other black people from tribes and sell them to the white guys. So serfdom has nothing. Serfdom, Nivek, would have nothing to do with the transatlantic slavery. Like, it didn't lead to that. There is no sort of causal relationship between both of them. Perhaps it could have led to something else, I don't know. But the transatlantic slavery was purely started off as not being able to do away with criminals, and then it led to purely economic transaction, mutual agreement. Although the people being sold didn't want to be they didn't want to be slaves, of course, but their captors, which were black people, would do that. So the king of Congo, the Mani Congo of Congo, much like the Pharaoh of Egypt, he was baptized. So he could speak Portuguese, because when his father was king, about, I think, 1535, that was around the region of when the Portuguese first encountered Congolese people. So he was baptized, he could speak Portuguese, he was pen pals with Zhao the first or second, I'm not sure. So he was baptized. His name was Mbembe Nzinga. He was baptized Alfonso II. Now, why am I telling you this? He wrote to Zhao II, telling Zhao to stop bringing merchandise to his land, because his people were capturing themselves and selling them off to the merchants for the merchandise. And merchandise could be wine, swords, cutlery, fabric, all that stuff. So serfdom had nothing to do with the transatlantic slavery.
I'm talking about the ideology connection between it and slaves, how it was with serfs and how it transferred to slaves, the similarities. It transferred it into being worse, into a more oppressive thing of not having a right. At least a serf had a right, but a slave didn't, and that same ideology of inequality that was in serfdom for many centuries it was it more went on. It race substituted for it.
When you say slave, are you specifically talking about the African transatlantic slave, or are you talking about the concept of slavery in general?
Well, yeah, I guess you can say the concept of slavery, because the ideology of inequality does go along, because it started off with whites being enslaved by other whites.
Slavery in general has been happening for tens of thousands of years. How long ago did serfdom start?
Transatlantic, okay?
Sorry.
What?
Transatlantic.
What do you mean? What's transatlantic?
You said what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
So you're talking about just a specific, very small era where slavery was happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a connection between the two of them.
Oh my God! Listen, man.
Do you think it's possible? Do you think it's possible that maybe slavery's just been the norm for practically forever, and there was no reason for it to just stop?
Those elites, those pro-monarchy elites, they backed the civil war of the South because it validated their argument of inequality. There's a connection of the inequality of serfdom and slavery in it transferring over into it. The elites was backing slavery of the Confederacy because it aligned their ideological way of thinking of the ideology of inequality. They were pro feudal serfdom monarchism, and they wanted that type of system in the society. The people of England didn't want it because they fought against that mindset, that type of system, for many hundreds of centuries. So there's a connection there. In the battle of the Civil War is ideology of inequality versus equality. But that had nothing to do with blacks. That was a fight that was being fought between whites for many centuries. That's what that really was about. But it divided people along the lines of race, because they didn't want to equate it to they didn't want to equate it to a black person. So it divided.
That's true.
I would take it from this standpoint. And actually, here's some scientific proof behind it. If you come from a third world country like a lot of parts in northern Africa at that time, you could be educated till the fucking cows come home. Your IQ is only going to max out so far. Okay, and arguably probably not get to the levels of many, whether it be white or even other black people or whatever it may be, just because of the area that you're living in. There's only so far you can understand. Now, America only took about 20%, if that, of the slave trade. Okay, Brazil took like 70%. Okay, it was massive. Okay, most people that are Brazilian today actually have African heritage because of how many slaves were brought there. But for that being, they simply thought that they were giving a better life to these people as second-class citizens, and they thought they were doing the right thing. You know, and they were like, I'm going to provide this guy with a home, I'm going to provide this guy with food, it's going to be fucking first world all the way, baby. You just got to pick.
Everybody thinks they're doing the right thing.
Right, exactly. But they thought that they were kind of like American, but not really American. You know what I'm saying? But they're going to give them that American lifestyle. So to me, it was more like, hey, we're getting a pet, you know? And to me, it was just this bastardization of really understanding how equal humans are and the potential of what a slave can do and things like that, and treating people equally. But that was just ignorance at the time. And I don't think it really had anything to do with like serfdom or, you know, and that's why they call it antebellum slavery. It really wasn't like people who are my equal-ish kind of people now owe me a debt and I'm going to fucking put them into slavery so that they can just have a better life instead of being poor and in debt.
Generational.
And it was generational, yeah. 600-year generation.
That's the biggest difference, man. There is no evidence for generational slavery in the Bible at all. And then when you got to America, it was generational slavery.
I think that's what people shot themselves in the foot. Yeah, because their kids end up being smart motherfuckers and understanding exactly how the slave owner worked.
Why you think America
So-
turned out differently?
Honestly, because we promote freedom here. And if you promote that just like where you do across other countries right now, they get a fucking taste of that shit and they start just changing, man. I mean, it just starts changing.
That's why
Look at the
there was a
Middle
war
East.
to stop America.
Look at the Middle East, man. I mean, we go over there, we start fucking shit up, and, you know, it's been, you know, a decade and a half later, and I mean, you just see so many changes. And what do people say now? They say, oh, because of America, because we saw some shit. Look at South Korea. Look at Taiwan. These places were third world fuck shit nations, and then we give them a taste of America and what freedom is like, you know, and they start just skyrocketing, you know, and arguably passing us at this point. So, quite insane, you know, but people want that. People see what is possible outside of their worldview when they start seeing what America can do or what England can do or whatever it may be. First world free nation, which I argue there are many of them. The question is, does democracy promote freedom or not?
It promotes the freedom of the majority, not of the individual.
It's also a governing republic of rules and laws. It's not just a majority rule democracy.
Yes,
Well, our republic is not correct. It is different.
Constitutional
We have a republic because we have states. We have states that come together. That's the republic. We're a democratic republic.
A republic just basically means you have an elected president.
Representation
difference between a democracy. So every state in the United States has a direct democracy. Like, people vote on things that they want to approve. So on the national level, we have
the republic is anti-mob rule. You can't just, because we're more of us, and we're just going to convict this guy and the jury is guilty because the rules and laws go, no, that's not how that goes. You have to have evidence and proof and stuff.
Every single state in the country goes off direct democracy. So it depends on what the voters vote for statewide.
Well, states are republic.
But there's
we have
guiding
electoral
rules,
college.
though.
It's a republic. States decide the presidency. People do not.
Yep. No, I just mean
there's
like
governing
state
rules,
rules,
though.
because the United States, state rules are, and that's what matters. And then
no. We have the electoral college. States decide the presidency.
Yes.
Yep.
But I think what happens in
isn't that supposed to represent the amount of people?
What happens in state politics has a way bigger effect on your personal life than what happens in national politics.
Right.
There's
electoral college is what decides the presidency, and then there's the popular vote, right?
Yep.
Ain't that supposed to represent the amount of people? The electoral college, isn't that what?
But it doesn't, because it's based on the census, and there's a rule that says that every state has to have a minimum of 3 electoral votes. And so, if you really went by population, like Wyoming, for example, Wyoming would only
Rhode Island
half of an electoral vote by its population. It has to have a minimum of 3. So it makes it
doesn't represent the population.
Now you have
it equalizes the
because here
so that states have an equal representation as opposed to the individual having equal representation.
Isn't it the same thing?
Do you want states deciding your president, or do you want the people deciding the president?
States, not the people.
Delaware,
so if you have 1 billion people in New York,
and Alaska has
1,000 people in the rest of the country, those 1,000 people should just dictate what those billion want.
It's because keep in mind, it's
so if
not
you have
the
1 billion
people.
people in New York,
it's not
and
the
you
people
have
that vote.
1,000 people scattered throughout the states. They should decide what those billions want.
Well, that's the fundamental problem. Is we need to have these certain rules.
Cities are going to keep growing.
We need to have certain rules that we can have between states, but then let states be able to do what they want to do.
So Bruce, you're okay with an unelected official making a vote for the president that could or could not speak on behalf of Americans. Now, let me finish too. Keep in mind, there has been 5 times The Electoral College went against the popular vote recently with Trump, by the way. Went against the Electoral College vote, giving it roughly about 6 to 7% failure rate on that popular vote. And you're okay with that?
Maintaining state sovereignty, I am okay. Yep.
Well, it's not the state itself. It's
not
a representative, not elected by the people.
I'm aware of what you're saying, but
Right.
in the other direction, I'm not interested in having popular vote and feds control state elections. So no.
I'm afraid of liberals.
I'm okay.
But it would,
No, I'm not.
It would be Fed control. Just say like, hey, here are these specific rules. Like it's not like they're specifically controlling what each state does. It would just say, here are the rules you need to abide by. It'd be the same thing with like a football team. Like a football team could like, here are the rules of the game. Here's what you need to abide by. But we can each do different things based off what we think will be beneficial to us winning the game.
Well, because of the Electoral College, you only have presidents visit certain states, right, to get the Electoral College vote and not to actually get the popular vote.
Yes.
It's more important for them to get the Electoral
Good
College
point,
vote because
Ray.
But if they were getting the popular vote, then they would only vote. They would definitely only be at certain cities at that point or states.
No, because you could visit the
No,
top
it wouldn't
30
matter.
most popular cities and still only account for about 20% of the population. You absolutely need to travel around the whole
It's
country.
equal representation because everybody's vote counts, no matter where they're at in the state.
Cities are not where all the population is.
No,
Yeah,
I'm not
and
talking about
that's-
just cities. It would just be a couple of states.
It's more
No,
equal
you'd have to
representation
visit a
than
lot of
popular.
states.
Not that many.
That's sort of the
You'd have
thing.
to
Like,
visit a
that's
lot.
why also we have the the buffer of the Senate and the House. So it's not like a
Well, yeah,
president's
there's that
king,
other side too.
No,
No.
it's not like a
President's not king.
just
I'm
a
just saying.
king and they can just do whatever they want to do.
Let's put it this way: if you're a red person in a blue state, your vote's going to count. If it's popular, if it goes through popular vote,
Yeah.
no matter where you are, your vote's going to count.
Yep. This is actually something like conservatives.
Ain't that
were,
how
like,
all nations
for.
are?
Well, conservatives were for this in like the 1970s.
They're for that earlier.
Yeah, and I don't
They
know
were
why
as
it
Democrats.
changed.
As Democrats, that's
Yeah,
what Democrat means is majority rule.
No, well, Democrats used to be against this. Democrats
No, I'm
used to
saying
be
the
like,
word
hey,
Democrat is majority rule. Republic is rule governed by rules and laws. That's why Democrats are first.
What?
They first started off wanting to be Democrats because they were the majority. It was about because the majority.
Now you're getting some like wild fucking like generalizations, man. Do you think just Democrats are good and Republicans are bad? Like, I mean, that's you're on a fucking branch way the fuck out there, dude.
I mean, I'd be more for what Bruce is talking about with state sovereignty. If there was no ability for the electors to be faithless, if it was just like points, you win the state, you get these votes, and the electors didn't have the ability to dissent from that.
Well, the electors have. I mean, the reason it's only happened so few times is because the electors' feet are held to the fire, and they would lose their position in the state. Would definitely. That's only happened a few times.
Yeah, and all the states actually right now do have laws forbidding electors from voting against what the state popular vote is.
I'm nearly positive that not all of them do.
Yeah, not all.
Well, that's up to the state, and so I mean,
no. The easiest state in the union to be a what do you call it? A faithless elector. It has a $50,000 fine for going the other way, and most of them are.
That's the easiest.
But the fact is,
well, that's the easiest one.
I do have to ask Bobby: Are you in favor of that? Of somebody who just says, "Hey, regardless of how everybody else in my state felt, and this is what they voted for, this is what I'm gonna put my electoral vote for." Are you in favor of that?
No, I don't like that, and I don't like the Democratic Party having super delegates either that have the ability to do that for their nomination.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So, I think the situation where an elector is needed I think we were very, very close to that this year, where a lot of the states had some really contentious potential security flaws in the way the elections were administered. And if there actually was, for example, in Georgia, evidence that the voting machines were hacked, and if that evidence did come up, the electors could very well say, okay, this election was bullshit, and we are voting for how we think it really went.
Well,
and that could happen, and that's what it's there for.
She said she was joking. It was all a joke. So, Sidney Powell said she didn't mean. She said
she didn't say
if
it was,
you
she
to
didn't
take
say
what
it
she
was,
said
she didn't-
literally,
no,
you
no,
have
no,
to be
no,
crazy.
no.
That's what she said.
Nivek, she didn't say it was a joke. She said anybody who believed what I said could not have been a reasonable person, because what I said was not reasonable, and it was clearly hyperbole, is basically what she got down to. It's just like, no, that's not gonna pass. She's fucked. She is.
She should have stuck to her argument. She shouldn't have switched her argument.
Well, to prove libel, they're going to actually have to do discovery to see whether she was correct or not.
Oh yeah. No.
So she was an advocate with a conjecture of trying to explain it. What she thought happened.
Yeah, exactly. We'll take this. Even take that as being 100% true, and then realize what her lawyers did in this court case was they went to the fucking judge and said any reasonable person would not believe what she said because it was fucking conjecture. And then what she did after that, she came out and fucking made another statement and said, no, that's bullshit. I meant everything I said.
She convicted herself. She convicted herself.
Fucked. It's like, how stupid.
She admitted what she did was deliberate.
I'm not just talking about in terms of being a pro fucking this, that, and the other. As a fucking lawyer, if you fucking did that shit, you've got to be fucking half goddamn.
Okay, so let's try to. Scott froze to me when you said half.
Yeah.
See, it's
retarded.
Yeah, he froze.
That looks amazing. Hey guys, let's try to bring things kind of back on track. So this. Hold on, Scott. You cut out. Let's try to bring things back on topic. There's a few new people in the room, and the topic is freedom, and we kind of went down this tangent about voting rights, electoral college, and things like that.
Yeah.
So let's bring it around on the next list. I think Bruno. I don't know if you spoke on freedom. What is freedom?
Bruno.
What's freedom?
Side note: does anyone remember the Sacha Baron Cohen Bruno character? Because that's who I think of when I see the name. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Bruno. All right, go ahead.
Bruno's not answering. We're gonna
did
go.
you ask me something? I didn't know.
What's freedom, Bruno?
What's freedom?
Answer.
What's freedom?
How much freedom can you eat?
I would say freedom is.
It costs $1.05, right?
I would really have to think about that to give you an accurate definition, honestly.
All right, no worries. Next on the list, Chick Vicious. What's freedom?
Hello. I've actually thought about this a couple of times, just not really in depth. But to me, freedom, not taking it to any specifics, it seems to be like a sliding scale measure. Consisting of two. On one hand, you've got constraint. You can have less freedom with more constraint, less responsibility. It's like it feels like those two things go hand in hand to some degree.
Okay.
Can I answer?
So freedom is a scale. Interesting.
Can I answer?
Hold on. Let's go to Dr. Doolittle.
Okay.
What's freedom?
I'm going to go with self-ownership, and all the things that implies.
You can just thank it. Got it. Eliyahu?
What is freedom?
Yeah.
First thing that comes to my mind is just bodily autonomy.
What I said. Nice answer.
Can I go?
All right. JS, you're like last on the list, Nivik. I'm sorry. JS Quarisia.
It's J Squaresy, but maybe responsibility.
Personal responsibility. Interesting.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if Mace has answered yet. What do you think, Mace? What's freedom? Freedom tastes like to you.
I can't decide if best wording would be an absence of rules or an absence of restrictions, but something along those lines.
You kind of think along the same lines of Chick Vicious. Well, I think that's everybody. I'm just joking. Go ahead, Nivik.
Equality of opportunity for
I just got
upward
my definition.
potential.
The equality of opportunity.
Equality of opportunity for upwards potential in upward mobility.
Interesting.
For everybody.
Does anybody have any disagreements with any of those definitions?
Yeah, I disagree with all the ones that weren't my own.
Yeah, well, you have the freedom to do that.
I would say
I think yours was along the lines of Chick Vicious. I mean, she kind of put it on a scale, and I believe it was responsibility and what was the other one, Chick?
Constraint.
I was going to say restrictions, but
yeah. Exactly.
Constraint.
Same thing.
I agree with the restrictions part. Don't agree with the responsibility parts.
I think with the removal of constraint as freedom increases, there has to be something that takes place beyond just the word freedom. I think freedom is just kind of a free floater otherwise.
It totally is, because you walk into some seminar and you say, "Who's for freedom in here?" Yeah. Everyone's hand goes up. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
That is literally the point that I made at the very start of this conversation.
I think it does actually.
Man, it doesn't. It's platitudes, right?
You mean freedom? I think it does.
It's like, platitude. Everyone has the freedom to do what they want. Okay, great. So I have my freedom. So I'm going to actually take my kid out of this school.
All right, I'll give you a quick definition of freedom.
Yeah.
I would say it's the allowance to carry out one's will without imposition or coercion. That's freedom, right? So it's not just anything.
What's coercion? What's coercion now?
So that's force do something.
Was coercion something that happened to you when you were 3 years old and somebody said something to you that stuck with you that then affected the way you viewed something? Is that coercion?
Well, it would be either way, whether you're controlled by the Sith, whether you have Stockholm syndrome,
can I explain my
doesn't
position?
matter, right? You wouldn't really call that freedom.
Can I explain my position?
It's not like...
Hold on, Nivik. No answer, and then you can go next.
It's not that. It's not the entirety, or it's not the entire absence of coercion. It's just, I think I'm defining this from sort of an adult's perspective, which is, you can't. You're free. You're free when you're not doing well. Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, no, you go on, Ivik. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, with equality of opportunity and upward mobility to utmost potential, equality aligns with fairness, and opportunity, it goes with anti-oppression, and
these are more
these
are more sort of nebulous words, though. Go ahead.
Can I finish? Because the three things was that was people wanted for themselves was freedom. I mean, equality, freedom, and justice for all. They wanted to be treated fairly, and they didn't want oppression. to be oppressed. That's anti-mobility, and they didn't, and they wanted justice against entitlement injustice, because people who were elites and nobles or kings or monarchs, they would have a system that would be unfair based off of entitlement, but justice it overrides that. No matter who you are, where you are, you get the fair justice treatment as a noble to a peasant. So equality, opportunity, and upmost and upward mobility and utmost potential covers equality in fairness, and it's against oppression in people being free and not being oppressed, and it covers justice in having fair law, having fair treatment under law, no matter who you are.
All right, I've got a question for you, Nivek. If you and I are in a communist system where jobs are assigned, you don't get to pick. There is equality of opportunity, but are we free?
Sounds like he's
no, it's not equality of opportunity.
Yes, it
is.
is.
It is. Everyone's equal. Everyone's got equal.
You both can either shovel shit or eat shit.
Yeah.
You both have the chance to
you
do
make
it.
you make
Nobody's
everybody
discriminating.
you make
Everyone's
everybody
equally
that
oppressed.
equality opportunity will make some people be better than more successful than another.
Oh, but Navik, that's unfair.
But if everyone's
I'm not a
equally
communist.
oppressed, then that's by definition.
Nobody said you're a communist. You said freedom is equality of opportunity and other stuff. And I said, if you and I inhabit a communist system and we're both
No, man, I'm talking about access of being able to progress. I'm not talking about like everybody having their money taken away from them and going to the government like a communist regime.
He's saying if no one has access to anything, then they have equal opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on.
How about the opportunity to occupy a lower rung in society if you so
Hold
choose?
on. If I can moderate, I think Nivik is saying, given all the options that are known, right, then to have that equal opportunity. Now, if you know that you're getting treated like shit and you want the opportunity to not do it, or you want the opportunity to live like the king, right, or live like another guy, then you still have that opportunity. Is that right, Nivik?
Yeah. Everybody has it's fair. Competition is fair, and
no matter what the job is.
There's no type of privilege to anybody. Okay. But it's I'm not pro everybody being broke commie.
Well, that's the thing. What if the difference is not being like broke and being a king? The difference is being broke and being able to afford one package of ramen every day.
But if that's the only world you know, right? Then that ramen is like, oh, I'm in fucking heaven, man. Look at this ramen. Like, if that's all you know,
let me tell you,
that ramen
you're still fucked.
Well, if you know that the motherfucker down the street can get really good pasta, then you're like, well, where's my opportunity to get the pasta?
Listen,
that guy would also know that the guys who are coming in to fucking check his ass that are working or driving Mercedes with fucking guns and all this kind of shit, and back, oh yeah, we're getting fucked. Yeah.
Listen, man. What I'm promoting is capitalism. When you invest in people, in equality of opportunity, you get a return gain of reward on that investment based off of hard work, in a competitive environment, and it drives innovation. You have productivity. And you have competition from the bottom up to the top. It's just some people they have a hierarchy mind. They don't want a system because they don't want competition. If you're wealthy, some wealthy people don't want competition.
To me, it sounds like you've seen these and you've read these ideas of how like
No, I think on my
systems
own.
work, and you just think that that's how it is, man. Like the world is fucking dirty, dude. It does not work the way you think it does. Like,
well,
you know what you think is a black and white fucking observation is clearly not. Like once you actually get out, ever experience this kind of
I don't
shit.
really think black and
Like
white.
I've worked in construction. I've worked in restaurants. I've worked in fucking many a goddamn different fields. And what
Cow
you think
insemination?
you see is none of that. And then what you
Bovine
what,
insemination?
Animal husbandry.
what you see is not what always you get, man. Like there is so many different fucking variations going on here, and it just seems to me you've made these certain conclusions about this is the way that it has to be, and that's the point where when I hear you say these things, I disagree with you because it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, I
Somebody
would
give an
say that I would
example
say the flaw
of-
in the logic is that in order for you to have upward mobility as you so desire, there has to be an up, which means that there has to be inequality.
Well, not
Can
just
somebody give
desire,
an-
There's
but also
literally
not just
no
a
such thing as
desire.
upward mobility unless you have inequality.
Well, not just
Let's-
a
let's-
desire,
let's-
but if you also like
No,
imagine
man.
you had
I'm
like
not talking about
30,
hand out.
30
I'm talking
different
about a
people.
hand up investing.
But you're saying
well, if you had 30 different people who had the choice to go up to 3 jobs, so you're talking about 1 out of 10, even with that amount of group, like you could have the people who were the best of their best, and only 1 of 10 is going to get to go and have that job. So that's still the case, even in the best of the best. So this idea that you're saying like all of a sudden these people are unworthy, like no, like there could have been the slightest bit of difference that led this one person to get past than this other person, and it's not all meritocracy, because if you understand anything about like American culture, it's also like, oh, your dad was one of the founding partners of this firm, so yeah, you definitely have a couple legs up. So I mean, there's all these certain aspects that take place and what's going on, and to have this idea that you think that what's going on in the United States is based on merit. I don't see that at all.
So that's my next point. So that's my next point. Does anybody think people in another first world nation today, like for example China, maybe even India,
Worse.
there's a few other places, Philippines, would you say that they have freedom?
Yeah.
You say that they might feel freedom.
Yeah, I would agree they're in a worse situation than.
They're all falling into the same trap that Scott just talked about, which is nepotism.
Scott, all people aren't the same, though.
No, all people aren't the same. No.
So you're saying person being just simply weaker than another person. What a person is in their unique in their unique individuality, that in itself is a strength.
What I'm saying,
that in itself is a strength.
What I'm saying is you could have like think about the Olympics. You could have 30 different people who were literally just as good as everybody else, and it comes down to like how they responded, or who won out on this specific competition, and they go into like more advanced training to truly get them ready for the Olympics. But those other people who, if they had a better day, could they have been in the same spot? Of course they could. This idea that people are just like special snowflakes,
the point
and
of
fucking nobody else is like them. Nah, son.
The point of equality of opportunity, people progressing forward, people have their unique individual strengths, and they contribute to society.
Yes, but then that's not fair.
Whatever it is about you,
back over there.
whatever it is about you, you contribute. It's a back and forth when you have more people moving upward.
no.
People will have
Yep,
different
yep,
strengths, and they'll contribute in different ways. More
no.
more things,
Yep, we got your point.
innovation, and more ideas will come. So there's no such thing as a person just being stronger than another person. Everybody is an individual, you know, and that's how America grew through its ingenuity of everybody being different as individuals.
Yeah, Nevek, we got your point. Bobby, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that this equality of opportunity is still impossible, though, because no matter what you do about the laws, okay, you have me and another kid that was raised around the block from me, same race, same age, same school, same religion, same religious upbringing, and you know, I make it to middle classhood, and you know, he dies of a drug overdose when he's 21 years old.
You're not understand. You're not listening to what I'm saying. I'm saying when you have open mobility and diversity.
Nivek, stop. Nivek, stop. Let Bobby finish, man.
That's okay. You can go ahead, Nivek. I'm just trying to point out that like this opportunity is like, it's flawed. The second you're born, you're thrust into a world where you've got parents that you didn't choose and genes you didn't choose and a household that you didn't pick. And
you've actually got a misunderstanding of what equal opportunity means. There's an unspoken word that should be in there. When they say that, they mean equal legal opportunities, as in everyone has the same rights. They don't mean
what I wanted to say.
Same physical opportunities, obviously.
I don't think that's very obvious, but okay.
I already went through
equality under the law.
Days ago.
Good way to say it.
The best you can get, Nivek, we've been through this, is equality of opportunity, but reference to the laws. That's the best, like the closest you can get.
I said that not all people are the same. There are strengths in their unique in their uniqueness, and that's how America progressed. You have people that are individually unique, and you have innovation. You have new ideas. You know, by investing in people. You guys are thinking about this one.
America, though.
What?
Yeah, but this is the thing, right? Like,
what's up, Bruno?
That's how you have a progressive society. That's how society advances. It advances and it evolves. It evolves when you have a lot more people having opportunity, and it's not just you being a person being stronger in one area. You know, you have when you. You have people. You have new innovations come out when people, you know, like these a lot of these wealthy, like a wealthy person, he's afraid of people moving upward, you know, and he gets overtaken. He should just go into a different avenue and try to be good at that. If he gets, you know, if somebody move up and they
startups a lot. Do you know that?
Oh, guys, on Livik.
So,
what's up, Kotor?
Am I on? Or I don't know if the audio is good.
Sure. Can you explain what freedom means to you, and explain to Nivik? And then I got another thing for us to talk about, because I think it's also important to kind of end on an advancing situation.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Kotor. What's freedom to you?
Yeah. Well, generally, I think that, you know, you're as free as how much you can leverage your own will in society based on your means, pretty much. But also kind of a critique I kind of have been hearing about Nivik kind of making his points is kind of like, I think the issue he's going to have is, I actually don't necessarily disagree with his vision of like what he thinks like should be in society or shouldn't be in society, but I think that the issue he's going to have is that he doesn't substantiate enough and have like measurable, defendable arguments enough to kind of make the case better. But I kind of think that's like more of an issue. But I generally think it's the same idea. But like, for example, every time you kind of have a policy and it has like for example, like the GI Bill, it invested in veterans education and had a 700% return on value. And generally, like stimulus packages, they generally go to the economy and have a measurable effect coming back. Because like that's a measurable way of how more economic freedom is being afforded. Okay, sorry, I kind of rambled. What's going on?
You lost yourself there.
No, I mean, I thought someone was gonna say something. I don't want to take up the entire day. I don't know.
No, that was actually pretty good. I like the way. So the way you measured freedom was the effect of your personal will in society, right? Which is kind of interesting.
According to your means.
According to your means, obviously. I think we're all within our means. I think that's a standard.
Well, they can be more be given to a person.
So what I'm kind of saying is, like, let's say you have like X amount of will and Y amount of maybe potential to attain it, whether it's intellectual, work ethic, whatever it is. That should pretty much be tied to what actually happens in society, and pretty much
That's what's going to happen.
Help you
know,
produce,
some people, when everybody gets, when everybody is invested in they compete. Some people are going to people that exceed ahead of them. And
Nivek let Grim respond to that, because that was a question to Grim.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like another thing though. It's like those are kind of very like general statements to make a point you're trying to make, and it's like you can't just like make general statements. You have to have like something like measurable and specific, and then they'll make the case better.
No, I can speak logically. I don't have to have an example.
So this is a great segue into kind of what I kind of want to touch. Is there any way? And feel free, anybody could chime in on this. Is there any way that we could be more free? Does anybody have any ideas of how we could be more free than maybe you are right now in your personal area, or just the world itself, just the United States?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Coach.
I mean, again,
the most free you could ever be.
Hold on, Scott.
Is
let Courtois answer. Hold on, Scott.
Oh, okay.
Was there a joke?
Right,
Scott had a joke.
Yeah, so I think an issue we're gonna have is like there definitely is going to be measurable negative impact towards us when there are people that are in a very much more elite in terms of wealth status category, kind of buying in, having a lot of the buying power into politics. Like if you look at I think there was like a Princeton study that said like most people aren't even consequential to what happens in policy. So it's kind of like I think that if we really make it so that the system kind of represents the people, it could have it could make it kind of to that definition that you're not like given a silver platter, but you're at least given a chance to advance yourself based on your means and your will, but according to your means, and you're not like given any kind of advantage or disadvantage in any kind of way. So like that, like generally a lot of the problems could be fixed by the money interests in our current system, I think, in the States.
Scott, how could you be more free?
Yeah, I just think you went down like a road of like politics, and this is actually something I've thought about many times before. The most free any human being could ever be is a state right after being born. You're right. You really have like no pressure being put on you. Like you were just responding with you have no outside force ever dictating what your behavior should be. Like you were just behaving in the way that you respond. That is the most free.
Well,
I know it sounds ridiculous, but this is actually like a line of thought I've thought about for like fucking 5 or 6 years. Like what does it mean to be free? Like that's
stated like right after you're being born, or you're saying that the only way to be more free is to crawl up inside of it. What are you trying to say?
Even in the womb, you might have that experience where there's like there's nothing, there's no true outside force telling you this is the way you need to react, this is the way you need to be, because once something like that happens, your freedom is taken away. Period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like if we're breaking these down to a pure philosophical level, once somebody says, "Oh no, that's not what you should do," your freedom's gone. Like that's like you've.
That doesn't sound like a lot of enjoyment.
So you're talking about like a situation where there's no government.
No, not no government. No,
Thinking
no. Has
You're
nothing.
truly
Has
free
nothing
in
to
an
do
anarchistic
government.
state.
Yeah.
like
Yeah, but
Sure.
I'm not sure what you're
there are
I'm not
also
sure what you're
metaphysical
describing though.
burden.
Not even
Like there are
not
also
even anarchistic. Like just imagine like somebody is like in a fucking in some field 200,000 years ago and they're born, and once they're born they start experiencing things. Once they experience something, their freedom is certainly chipped away because they are taking in for information that is affecting what they could choose otherwise. And like to me, like when I get down to what people would talk about freedom, that's what it has to be. It's fundamental level. So that's why I don't. That's why I sort of say like when I hear people talk about freedom, I think they're being fetishist because they're not really they don't understand it. They're not really getting what freedom really is, and they just have this idea.
Yeah,
Of
fuck
like,
bitches make
I mean,
money.
that sounds kind
I
of
could
like
just do whatever I want, man, and that's freedom. No, it's not. Like you don't get it.
What's
I
freedom?
mean, that sounds kind of like a
Bitches
situation
make
where there's
money.
no government, though. So, I mean, you said like it doesn't necessarily mean
honestly,
anarchy, but like
I
what you
think
kind of described kind of sounds like a situation where humans are just kind of like left to themselves and like there's no government. So I'm not sure actually
No,
what you're
no, no,
substantiating.
can I
no.
just quickly
Hold
say
on, hold on, hold on.
I'm
Let's
explaining it.
let's get hold
Explaining
on,
it in a
Scott. Hold on, Scott.
philosophical level. That's all, not a governmental
Okay,
level.
let's get Bruno's opinion.
yeah, like you keep talking about government. It's much more of a philosophical like problem, really, because there's also metaphysical freedom,
Sorry.
right? Like because there's metaphysical suffering, so you would need metaphysical freedom. So even if you decided to get rid of all the governments in the world, you would still be left with metaphysical suffering, right? Or I think existential, actually not metaphysical, existential, which is you could sort of derive metaphysical from. But so it's not limited to government, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's limited to government. What I'm saying is like my kind of argument is that if you don't have a monopoly of force protecting you from something else that could hurt your freedom, then that something else will hurt your freedom, or like some kind of like bigger corporation or some kind of bigger you
Yeah, but
know,
That's what the
situation.
founding fathers
that
was
is a
trying to figure out with check and balance governing.
So
when
it's
you're
like they
saying
kind of
that when you're
ignore
saying
that.
that you're well, hold on. When you're saying that, you're making a political argument.
Yeah,
What we're
that's the
talking
thing.
about is
Politics is
philosophical
everything.
arguments.
Politics is
No,
everything.
no,
Like say
no,
like
no,
politics wouldn't
no,
have
no,
a place
no.
in what you just described is just like
Philosophy preceded politics. So it's
Yeah,
politics is not everything. Come on.
Philosophy
I'm just not sure what you're describing then.
but that it's common sense, guys.
pol-
It's just common sense. The question is
the
how
politics
much
of
more.
America is based off philosophy.
The question is how much more can you be free? Like, and I've said, you get rid of the government, you're still left with like suffering. So like, you're not
Still not
free.
free. You're
Like,
not
do you get
free.
it, man?
Period.
You're not still free. So it's there's no point trying to talk about government, really.
Exactly.
So you're just
I
saying there's no
mean
freedom?
whether there is or isn't a government depends a lot on
the
your
point,
freedom.
It's yes, you're right. Like, I'm not saying there isn't, but the question was, I can't remember exactly how Grimm's put it, but he says something like, can you be any freer or something like that? Or how much more can you be free? And you guys are going down the rabbit hole of politics and government, and Scott denies saying, well, it's much.
It could be either. It could be a political. It could be a political. It could be a political line. It could be a philosophical line. You know, honestly, it could be either. But can you think of more ways that people could be free? You know, and one could be an anarchistic state. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying, yeah, we could be more fucking anarchistic and less government, and that would give me more freedom. That's a valid, absolute valid.
It's not valid.
Something else would destroy your freedom. You'd be a
Anarchistic
slave.
state. Well, hold on.
It's a
Anarchistic
valid
state
argument.
might give you more freedom from one specific governmental body, but you might have less. But you might have freedoms restricted by other groups. So that's the point. Like an anarchistic state, like I think about it the same thing as like feudalism. So you might not have like a overarching governmental body saying you can't this, but you have five governmental bodies saying you can't do this, and this, and this. So then all of a sudden, instead of like having to understand the social norms and mores of one group, you have to understand them for five groups. and that's
It's
even less
libertarianism, isn't
freedom.
it?
That's even less freedom.
I mean, like, but excluding government from this conversation would be like saying that it wouldn't matter if you're like a slave or if you're in a society that's like very progressive and
Hey,
like very like has a lot of
absolutely
upward
wouldn't.
mobility,
you're
and then
right.
you kind of say,
Absolutely wouldn't
okay,
matter.
what's in their
Hold on,
mind, or
hold
like how do they think, or how can they be free with that without that set? So I mean, that's like the level of what we're talking about here.
Absolutely
If
matters.
you're
That
excluding government,
absolutely matters.
Arthur,
Hold
you're
on,
right
hold on,
when you
hold
said
on, hold on,
about
hold on.
when you mentioned
Hold on. Let's not talk over each other. Go ahead.
So-
Go ahead, Kotor. Can finish your thought, and
Oh,
then
yeah,
Scott,
yeah,
Nivik.
so, I
and
mean-
I want to get Zombie's opinion too.
Yeah, I mean, I just think like if we're excluding government from the conversation, if that's really to the extent that like we're saying that okay, it doesn't matter whether you're like a slave enslaved by some kind of whatever the hell else would enslave you if there's no government, or you're in some kind of like progressive maybe Norway country where there's a good amount of upward mobility, which I would argue with, and it's kind of like saying like okay, so. Let's say let's say that doesn't matter. That's not the realm we're speaking of. Then what? Are we talking about psychology? Are we talking about like there's not much left if you're like literally enslaved by the fact that like there's no
I would
government.
argue that
I think we're talking about philosophy, like the specific basics of the arguments that we're trying to make. So does my argument have any validity? Is there any veracity to the greater statement that I'm making? That's different than.
So we're clearly talking past each other because one is from a political standpoint when it comes to freedom, and the other one is more of like, hey man, is my spirit and my mind and my body free? Like I have fucking total enlightenment and nothing is attached to fucking like you can take that if you want to. I'm just saying. I'm just saying you could take it.
Where you think
And we
I'm
do know
coming
that.
from,
Hold on.
Grim?
Let me.
Like
No,
my
I don't.
spirit,
No, I
my
don't.
friend?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Holy
No,
shit.
I don't. No, I don't. But I'm just saying. But I'm just saying. But I'm just saying. And then there's the anarchistic state from that type of political statement. So before we go into those two, that's fine. Zombie Chicks, welcome to the room. What's freedom to you?
Oh my. I think it's changed throughout my life actually. At one point I was really driven on being debt free, which I accomplished and was that way for paid off my house, had nothing but like basic utilities, so I kind of felt like I had the ability to travel and do what I wanted and a lot of disposable income. But that like slowly changed because I didn't actually then feel free in my personal life. And so I chose to get a divorce. So, I mean, I look at freedom kind of from a really small kind of familial view, and then also more in a world sense. So I
Okay.
think that each individual has to decide what their own freedom is, and I just think that it is a constantly evolving state.
Yeah, and
So,
Zombie making, like, just to quickly say something, Zombie is essentially saying what I'm trying to say is fundamentally it's not attributed to government or, other things, because you can tell she says her freedom's changed from debt to financial freedom. So if you have someone who thinks their freedom is the abolishment of government, once they get that done, they're faced with another sort of um problem which they desire to be free from. So if you ask the question, how much more can you be free? The answer is, well, I don't think you really can, because freedom isn't just it doesn't have one component, which is freedom from government, freedom from debt, freedom from this. It's a multiplicity of things, the way I see it.
But she said
I would argue
being debt
with you,
free
Bruno,
has something to do with
exactly.
freedom, right? I mean, like, it wasn't that like a definition described?
Well, I think what Bruno is trying to say, which is kind of where I would come from that same camp, is that no matter what, and maybe even where Scott's coming from is like, no matter what, once you have an outside influence, you will always have, some sort of thing tying you down that you might say, well, I'm grounded to.
right? And one could be a business debt, one could be a relationship, one could be political, one could be, obviously philosophical. People are obviously trapped in their own mind in a lot of ways. I mean, there are of how to best move forward and say this is not what we an ought is out there objective, but everybody has their subjective way of maybe what's tying us down, what we need to be more free. Is there anything society wise that we could change? We could say, dude, like, or that we can help others. So the things that we do notice that maybe some people think they're free, maybe we think we're free. I don't know. Comment.
I was going to ask if it would be helpful to set up the presupposition that we're talking about by one's own standard with freedom, because opening up, looking from the outside and determining, oh, is this person free? Are they ignorant of freedom? Whatever the cases happen to be, that just expands the discussion really far. And I wonder if maybe we're trying to focus on whether it be from governmental impositions, we'll say, or from ourselves, just judging by our own standards, our own level of freedom, what we're looking for. Is that really what we're talking about?
I think that could work, but maybe it only works in an anarchist state, because you may your idea of freedom may conflict with a law or a regulation. So,
well, for this discussion though,
I do think we could actually probably say there are more restrictions put on interaction through a societal standpoint. It has nothing to do with laws being passed. It just has to do with, like, here are the social norms and here are the things you can and cannot do. I think we have more restrictions put on our social interactions based on those than we have by laws by a drastic degree.
I don't know.
Because there's no law.
I
There's
would
no
agree
law
with
against
that.
calling your mom a cunt, right? But you don't want to call your mom a cunt, So we have these certain social norms that, like, we put in place on ourselves, and, like, the amount of norms that we put on our place and put on ourselves to just deal with the world that we're around, compared to any actual law ever written. I mean, it's
Yeah, I
Okay,
think
let
Alan
me
Watts.
let
I think
me
Alan Watts talks on that
so
on the
fucking
things that tie us down.
yeah. But it's so fucking huge. Like, I mean, it's such a massive amount.
Let's go from personal reference.
I think that there are
personal
actually quite a few laws, though, that kind of dictate our choices.
I think so too. Yep.
I mean, I enjoy a hot shower. So in order to have that, I need to pay electricity, right? I mean, you're not going to enjoy a hot shower if you choose not to. And I know that, that comes down to not necessarily a law, but, a bill that we have. But I go back to looking at, there's a big movement right now for women to be able to have a choice, work in the sex trade. And a lot of individuals who think that all of these women have a choice, which they don't.
Exactly. They do. Yeah.
They don't all have a choice.
It's fucking gross, man.
Okay. And so our law says that if you're under 18 and you are engaging in sex for the exchange of something of value, that is against the law. So anyone under 18 does not have a choice to sell sex. Yet they don't view themselves as a victim oftentimes. So that's my thought on the choice.
Well, there are people who are over 18 who are still victims of that kind of shit, like, regardless of this, like, arbitrary, like, age restriction put on it. There are people who still are succumbing to that like abusive behavior. Like to me, yeah, I agree with you 100%. That's fucking atrocious. And we should go after those fucking people with every goddamn fucking thing.
But there's this huge movement, and in working in this arena, in trying to allow individuals to have the choice to move forward to prosecute their exploiters. So what you see sometimes is coercive circumstances with law enforcement in trying to corral people to move forward in testifying against their exploiters, where if you're really looking at being victim centered and allowing them to have choice, then that might not be the choice that they want to make. They may want to sit on it, and it may just be that you need to document and allow them not to move forward.
Couldn't we pass laws that can punish people who did that shit without having people?
Yeah, you always
to like
no, you
like
need
expose
witnesses.
themselves. Well, they
No.
need
Still need a
witnesses,
witness.
but you need a witness. But couldn't that witness be protected like by the court so their
No.
identity didn't get out? Because
they
that happens
try.
all the time with like rich people, and like rich
They
people get
try.
away with that kind of shit all the time.
It doesn't
like, their
work. It's broken. Doesn't work. It's broken. I would say 95% of the time it doesn't work. It's broken.
God.
Either that or I'd have 90 cases a week. It'd be really easy the other way.
Not like my effect. Like throw up.
My new freedom that I'm trying to explore is whether I buy a farm and try to like actually, not that I'm a big ass hippie or anything, because I'm kind of a girly girl and like to dress up and put makeup on and shit, but trying to look at being self-reliant, I guess. Other than I'm still going to have electricity because I need my hot water.
Yeah, I think it's more freedom in being a contractor than an employee. That'd be a definition.
Yeah.
Well, depending how much you make,
I'm not really out to make any money. I've already made my money. I'm gonna survive. I want to make ends meet, and I want to be able to, actually break even, or at least leave the kids a chunk of land and a decent farm.
Yeah, I mean, if you're solid, that's a different story. If you need to, as opposed to need like building up something,
But your freedom is actually escapism. It was getting away from people and it being self-reliant to where, like, you'd be surprised if somebody even showed up on your property, kind of thing.
You'd be surprised how little freedom you have if you actually are trying to run a farm. You're a slave. You're a slave to your own cattle.
Time. Dr. Doolittle brought up the old time.
To your cattle. Yeah, absolutely, man.
So there's one thing I think we can all do to improve our own freedom, and I'm gonna go with Jocko Willink on this one and say self-discipline.
I was going to say
self-discipline is the path is the path to more freedom, and anyone can do it no matter what situation you're in.
I do
want
to ask.
Yeah, I mean,
I do want to ask, Doctor, have you ever had to bale hay?
I have not ever. I'm allergic to hay, so I avoid bailing. I avoid bailing.
How the fuck do you drive down the freeway?
That's a motherfucker. You're just like walking behind a truck for like fucking hours.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah, I used to live in here.
Like every 30 feet, you're just like throwing.
Fuck that noise.
Yeah, but then
would you rather bale hay, bale straw, or fork chicken shit out of a coop into a manure spreader?
Or there still is artificial inseminating a cow on the table.
I'm officially inviting everyone to come live the farm experience.
The chicken shit
but
can
like
give
if
people
self-discipline is
emphysema,
being
and it's far
invoked,
more
then there's no
aromatic.
way that
Yeah,
the government couldn't have a role,
did
because then
shit,
at a certain point people were enslaved. Like, how could you self-discipline your way to freedom if you're literally enslaved? So that's like, I don't understand how you can not invoke government in that conversation and just be like, it doesn't
You have the
exist.
best
Those people,
chance,
those,
though.
What?
yeah, and it's more of a
Enslaved of
united.
what?
It's more of a
You're not enslaved if it's your choice.
Yeah.
The people were enslaved. It wasn't their choice.
What was that?
So Couture, well, hold on, Couture. That's more of when you get a kind of like a movement. That's when you have a bunch of people talking about the same subjective freedom that they want, right? And when they are finally able to talk to you, be like, "Hey, man, if there was one thing, what would it be? Free of these fucking chains." That's what it would be. Like 100 times, 9 times out of 10. And then, fucking like you go down the line and everybody's saying that. Like I think that becomes a movement of freedom, right? But everybody still has their subjective opinion, right? And there might be that one weird fuck guy who's just like, dude, slavery, like fucking all the way. He's that guy.
But like, if
everybody
you are
else would be
slave,
unanimous, right? But when you were talking here and we got a room of 9-12 people or whatever, and everybody has like a different opinion. We're not always, complaining about the government, really. We're talking about time, we're talking about credit, we're talking about partnerships, we're talking about philosophically. I mean, I think that when you have something like that, it's super important, which is why I brought up earlier, when you have basically, which is really, really interesting, fun fact is the way that you take a third world country and you turn it into a first world country. There's only been one proven way. Does anybody know what that is? The equalization and empowerment of women.
Yeah.
Because you have half the population doesn't make decisions. Right? And so this country can stay third world for a long period of time. So when they have that equalization,
but that's a governmental solution.
It's not true.
No,
Please
it's
correct me.
not a governmental solution. That has never not been true either. Like when you give women the same rights across any society, of every time we've ever looked at it, Grim is totally right. Like fucking things.
Who raises the kids, man?
Look at the regional industries around a place like Ghana. You've got some that are largely female dominated and others that are largely male dominated. The males tend to have far more hazardous jobs in those regions and far more violence. But the stability or instability tends to be based on the agricultural distribution to a large extent.
Largely
non-cash economy.
I'll look it up.
There was not a correlation made between the types of jobs. Just that people had jobs.
I can't research it fast enough. Group of people disenfranchised in a country, it had to do with the government on what they do.
Can we not talk over each
I like to.
Like Jesus Christ, dude! Like that's a weird.
I like to respond. Dr. Doolittle. I don't know the facts of what you're saying. That's fine. Then I'll just grant you that majority of the time the best. No. Oh, I'm sorry. Who was I talking to?
No, that was Loki.
Loki. Sorry, Loki. Oh, we didn't get your opinion either of what you think freedom is. But let me respond to you real quick. I'll redact that and I'll just say majority of countries going from third world to first world has been the equalization of women. Majority of them have worked off that path, and what you saw was that. So if you'd like to respond to that, but I also want to know what your definition
if
of
it's an
freedom is.
industrialized democracy, that's probably largely true, although probably with some exceptions. But there are other forms of society and government, where it doesn't fit as the global universal that it was stated as. As far as concept of freedom, I'd probably tend to avoid the kind of specifics that I've heard a few people mentioning, and say something more generic that is adaptive. That it's having a mixture of the resources to be able to go in life directions that you'd choose or favor, and lack of artificial external limits, might even include lack of things like medical conditions or ecosystem conditions that become limits apart from human imposed ones. If you're in the process of dying, or if you're severely physically disabled, that can be quite a freedom burden and not even be an externally manipulated imposition on you.
Exactly.
A lot of physical
But like
constructs.
when you're
Yeah.
talking about
Right, yeah.
equalization of women in the society, and that's how you transform a third world country to a first world country, that like every time there is any kind of disenfranchised group of people, it has to do with the government's decision on what they do. Every single time, it's always related to a governmental decision. So taking them out of the conversation of freedom, it's like you're just making the case for me of why it's essential to the
Well, first
conversation.
of all, that's just not true. So it's a specious argument from the start.
I don't think I was not. You literally just invoked actually government, like you were saying, like you're talking
Oh,
about like
hold
certain
on,
kind of
hold on,
industrial
Loki. What do you mean by
democracy, and
that?
like what do you think that is a government? I mean, it all pertains to a government. That like none of those things can be accomplished without a government.
What about
Yeah, I
matriarchal
think.
tribes that are in the third world?
Well, I think here
How
we
would
get
you?
into the
How would
realm
you?
with both of you guys are wrong, because
They
I
have a lot of
agree
other
with both of you
problems.
guys, but both of the arguments that you're making on each side are wrong.
Yeah. So the first argument is that the third world means something other than that they're neither aligned with Russia nor the United States.
It's defined largely by a set of World Bank criteria for the most part on this planet.
So the easiest way to get someone out of the third world and into the first is to make an alliance between them and the United States, which just instantly changes their definition.
And you do that through government.
Join the UN or try to achieve for the G7. So yeah, there's a lot
Or
of
or a free
also
trade or a
government.
fair trade treaty or something.
That's
Yeah,
why
but
we see people right now.
That's why we're allies with Japan right now.
So we see people right now out there in the world, right, who might think they're free, right? They think they're free, right? And then they start to understand through the, looking at other countries that maybe wearing a burqa and being forced to wear a burqa isn't the right thing. But what we're also finding is that's kind of been a conversation for quite some time too, which is interesting.
Well, is being forced to wear a yarmulke the same thing?
Yeah. I think being forced to wear anything is kind of,
yeah.
But then there's laws and restrictions about how they do that. So that's how they're working it, right? I can't just go out buck naked, right, and not be like, "Hey, man, it's indecent exposure." Well, you're not wearing a burqa; it's indecent exposure, right?
Well, that's also where it gets. It's also where it gets really sticky, because if you went to the United States and be like, "Hey, you guys should be wearing yarmulkes," because
this is the bathing suits in the 1930s kind of conversation.
You're gonna run into some really weird fucking opposition to that fucking statement.
Wait, I don't see how that countered what I was saying of how government would be essential to freedom, creating freedom.
Hold on, Loki. What were you saying, Couture?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't see I think that all that kind of made my point for me about how government is essential to freedom, because all those things involve the government and what they did. You even said equally empowering women or whatever. How who's going to do that? The government. Who's going to form a coalition with the UN? The government. It's all
agree with you.
The government. It's
that's what America was trying to figure out when it was being created, of not having one thing too powerful or the other, and they created check and balance governance, modeling off of Greek philosophy of check and balance. You have democratic and it's a republic.
Excluding government from the conversation is just it's impossible. I mean, it's not the government can make the difference of whether you're literally a slave or whether you're able to assert the maximum of your will and your means.
Absolutely.
So when you have check and balance, you can't.
Man, I can go live on an island. No fucking government.
Nobody's saying nobody's disagreeing with that. Couture and Nivek, you're absolutely right. But the question is about freedom. Now, if you define freedom through government, then that's cool. I definitely support you on that. But I think it's a much more broader question, because we could also go really deep and say, well, you didn't choose the color of your hair, right? You didn't choose your physiological condition when you're physiologically ill. Are you free then? Right? You exist. You didn't choose to exist. Are you free? These are really deep questions, right? So,
I mean, then that kind of gets into almost like free will versus determinism, which is a kind of another debate.
You could get there, yeah, but
But what I'm saying is kind of like a lot of the definitions I was hearing about, like, owning a farm, what you do with a farm, or like what you do with debt, like all those things, like kind of pertain to a government. Like what I would say, if like we want to have a conversation about like, about like, you didn't choose who you are. Like I would say, I kind of accept the definition of like how the concept of no self, how you don't actually exist. There's nothing you can measurably prove that what makes you you. So then if you don't exist, then there's no way that you can have necessarily free will, because there's no you to have free will. So I mean, if it's really free will versus determinism conversation, I would say because you don't exist, it's only determinism, because there's no yourself to assert a free will. But that would
let's not jump into metaphysics. Let's not jump on into that philosophy, because we're not really going to get to good solutions. But it's just going to end up where it is, people's opinion of determinism or free will, or the illusion of free will, or whatever it may be. The idea of freedom and how you exercise it. Well, because we're going into the possibility realm, and let's go in the probability realm. But let's more so keep it like in the modern day of when we're dealing with things like there is the mentality. So we can't touch on philosophy, but there is the mentality. People today, that are stuck thinking that they're free, even though they are part of the government, or maybe they influence the people around the government. Maybe they think that they think, hey, we're 100% free today, but yeah, it is mandatory that we do X, right?
Dude,
you have people in modern day. So you're going to touch on what I'm thinking, Scott. You're probably thinking right with it. So if you go to fucking Pyongyang, right? You go to freaking North Korea, you're going to be convinced by a lot of people that they think they're free. You're going to be convinced by a lot of people. And then secretly behind, you're going to find this certain sect of defectors, right? And this happens in China as well. This happens in all these countries. Now, yes, there are these third world countries where they don't have the equalization of women. They don't have a lot of voting rights. And so we're looking at the oppressive women and going, well, you guys are really, in a hard bind. But then you have people who are just convinced by the state in psychological warfare. Oh, dude, you're totally free. You just don't want to go out there. Not good for you. Okay, thanks, man. I love my country. Pleasure to be here.
When there are those
same
people. What's your alternative, though?
What's your alternative then? There are those same kind of people on the other side in the United States where they don't have those pressures, where they hear QAnon bullshit and all of a sudden they think I'm the one that's fucking right, and fucking I'm gonna take that to the fucking grave, and like
this book got me to vote for Donald Trump. What the fuck just happened?
Dude,
just fucking happened. What company did that? Oh, they got fucking put in jail. Oh, thanks. So too late now. Fucking
dude. Well, did you see this? Like, people are already saying, "Oh, the fucking shooting in Boulder was crisis actors." It's like, get the fuck out of here, man! You guys are fucking scumbag pieces of fucking shit. People died, and you're fucking trying to make some fucking political hatred off this shit. Go fuck yourself. Fucking die in a
you're from the state. I know that's hard for you.
Piece of shit, man. Like, fuck you guys, man. Like, fuck you.
So I mean, the issue of like thinking you're free and then not really being free, like, what's your alternative you're proposing then? I'm not really sure what the alternative you're proposing.
How do you? I mean, people do all sorts of things. People launch drones with flyers to educate the fuck out of those people, right? And they go, education, education, education. Let's show them the world. They drop these flyers and they get some responses, but it's not as effective. There's no one to show the outside world to them. And I'm just saying, like, it's from a psychological standpoint, if you want to go that realm, you can take it modern day with really looking at that stuff without going to, the free will deterministic side of it. So I'm just saying, psychologically, how would you combat that, though, if you want to go philosophical? Got it.
The whole idea of free will, I agree, really belongs outside a serious discussion, because it's an archaic notion that crosses between philosophy and religious dogma disputes. And if you want to turn it into a falsifiable concept that can actually be debated, you need to come up with a neurobiological definition with falsifiable metrics. And when you do that, you show that the whole idea is incredibly archaic bullshit off institutional religion and is basically a trash the item to be discarded.
Which is why I said there's really there's no point to go down the road.
But as far as freedom models, I'd suggest taking a look at the different voluntary intentional communities. The Federation for Egalitarian Communities brings together and has educational and cross meeting events over. They're in the voluntary private communes, incredibly different social and economic models, and different people choose one or the other, sometimes for idealistic or practical reasons, or try to form communities on different models. And, they're very far from any kind of uniformity on what those are. And, if you look at Twin Oaks in Louisa, Virginia, and Earth Haven outside Asheville, North Carolina, you may have almost polar extremes. People who have essentially a libertarian, small business-oriented commune out in the woods, versus people who have an equal dollar amount income, community organized industry, and labor and financial model, which is both restrictive and that some people find obnoxious, other people find very enabling.
You got those hippie colonies out there in the woods. That is very true.
Exactly, Loki.
I think Loki's trying to get me to make a hippie colony.
I know, dude. That was a very great point, Loki.
Why are you invoking government, but I can't invoke? When I invoke government, it's like bad, but then government's being invoked in a conversation multiple times. Like, how about those communes? It's like that involves government. There's no way to not involve government in anything you just said.
Well, but also, it depends on how you invoke it. Those things aren't always the same, because I can invoke one thing in a specific way and have a different reaction than if I invoked it another way. So,
I don't know what that means.
I know. I don't know what you're saying means, because I think obviously everybody reacted a different way to what Loki said based on the way he said it than what you said.
I said that government. I say the government is essential to ensuring and creating freedom, and then what was invoked was a bunch of government positions about how certain communities should be, how their income should be determined, and it's that's totally involves government. So I don't understand why that should be excluded when you were making a government point.
We're having a pro-government, anti-government conversation.
There's some level of governance or functional infrastructure needed. Even if you have one person on an island, if you don't have survivable resources, then there's nothing to govern. No resources needed anymore. You're dead. But there are in intentional communities fairly strong understanding, at least of the intelligently formed ones, as to how governance changes, and whether you call it government or not depends on whether you're talking about the public and legal systems or the private agreements. But there are certain sizes based on the number of people who can personally communicate with each other, or the need to specialize in maintaining infrastructure effectively, where what's functional for a structure of people changes.
So people think the government takes away people's freedom.
I would say what Loki just said too, in addition to being government, that it specifically was a philosophical explanation of way things should work, as opposed to just saying here's what government should do. I think there is a difference there as well.
So but all of that has to do with government's role, and there would be no way to accomplish. There's no way to accomplish or substantiate any of the points that were made without government. That's what I would say, hands down.
I think that there's two ways to combat it. I think that there's I think there's two ways. I think there's two ways to combat it. best way is a psychological way, and what we do is we kind of show by example in a lot of ways. What we do as far as our influence, right? So when you have our influence of, hey, here's all the freedoms we have in America. We go to a place like North Korea, and we know that there are efforts right now, right? Like North Korea is becoming a more kind of open kind of area when it comes to shutting itself completely off during the Korean War and literally just saying, we don't want to deal with the world anymore. We just want to do things our way. We're our tribe. And now
you also have
the end, like, what it reminds me of, I'll sum up my point. You know what it reminds me of? It's great. It's a movie called The Other Guys with Mark Wahlberg. And he goes,
aim for the bush.
He's talking to his captain. And he goes, you know what? He's like, you should keep on hiding inside your house. One day the world's gonna come knocking on your door. And he goes, damn, Terry, that's pretty fucking profound. And it was played by Michael Keaton. It was fucking hilarious. And it was so good. And so, but he made a really good point about, like, you know what? You can close up your walls, but the world's gonna come knocking. And we already are right now. And so you go over there and you talk to them, and I'm sure we are in some fashion. And we just go, listen, man, like, the world's just too big. It's just too small. We can connect, we can contact each other. We can around the world right now. People are knocking on your citizens' door. And what you need to do is give them freedom and then tax them. Right? Give them freedom, give them land, give them things, let them be happy, let them flourish. Enjoy your own capitalism. You don't have to join the capitalism community, but give them the freedom, and you'll notice that you'll take all of this stuff which you have to pay for on so little and begged and borrowed, and however they make their money, which we all know they're exploiting resources.
I would probably make
streamline it.
But who would give them that freedom?
It's just streamlining. It's just streamlining your money, man, and getting you a lot more money. And so for them, the people can be more free in that way.
Well,
I would start lining them up in that direction.
I'd make a bet in the long run. North Korea's gonna more associate along the lines of South Korea than they will with China over the long.
I think they're going to go more along the lines of, like, I think they're going to go more China and more Russia, but I think they're going to just be. I think they're just going to be closed off for a lot longer.
Well, I think they might be in the short term, but in like 50 years, I think that's going to be. I don't think that will be the case.
That diabetic leader is not going to last 50 years. I'll tell you that much, man.
Exactly.
I does not get on an exercise machine like tomorrow.
Yeah, there's going to be like 3 different leaders in 50 years.
Fat.
Fuck, man.
Kim Jong-un, dude, he's like fucking 45, and dude, he's got to have a cholesterol level like 380, dude.
Wait, but I'm confused. Are we talking about government again?
Doesn't care.
I thought we're not supposed to talk about government.
Dude,
but the point is,
are we talking about government or not
the
talking
point
about
is,
government?
we have. Well, I kind of attacked it from a philosophical, financial, and a government standpoint. Is that it's just, and even a technological, like, people can't remain restricted, I don't think, in this world much longer. I think it's only going faster and faster. Didn't Sri Lanka just like ban the hijab? Like, what the? Like,
well,
that is. Dude, I wouldn't be caught dead on Sri Lanka streets. Like I'm an atheist, I'm agnostic, and if I said that in Sri Lanka, like, there's a good chance I shouldn't say that at night there or be white.
Yeah,
it's just not pretty.
I do want to say, Couture, I think Grimm was bringing it into the politics to let your argument be able to come into play. I don't think he was doing it to negate your argument. He was letting you bring that argument in now. That's from what I understood.
I mean,
it's just including it.
I would just say fundamentally, like, no kind of, like, none of these solutions or ideals can be achievable or even substantiated without invoking government, as it kind of had to be invoked multiple times.
So, Couture, what do you think the anti-government stance is about? People have an issue with government.
It's about not understanding that if you don't allow a monopoly of force, which is government, that'll allow another force to enslave you. It's just like, it's a distraction, pretty much.
They're saying, like, they want to do what they want, and government stopping and getting in the way. And
Yeah, but something else a lot more threatening will get in their way if it's not government.
Exactly, I agree with you because if a lot of folks that are crying about government, you get that out of the way, then who's to stop other people imposing on another?
Yeah, you'll be owned by Walmart. That won't be fun.
How are you guys defining government? Because there may be a difference between institutional governments and governance of private organizations or small groups, and
country.
It's all government.
Okay, well then why were the models for intentional communities being called governments then? Were there private nonprofit groups?
Unless it's an anarchy, it's not. It involves government. Like unless it's an anarchy, it involves government. You can't deny that government is involved with even that, unless it's like a total anarchy.
But I even think Loki said private governance. It's like even a private group can have their own government. Like the Elks Lodge has their own specific government.
That was America's concern, that you have a government where that's check and balance, that you don't have people imposing on, and you don't have people imposing on another.
Yeah, but also I mean like privatized.
So
like I don't know if
you
like
don't want
privatized.
you have a government. Yeah, you have a government system where you don't want something to get too big. And
Not just imposing, but also you don't
dominating.
want to have a government in any sort of situation where you yourself don't have a say in what happens. And
I agree.
But when you have a check and balance secular government, you take out church and state, and it's equality, freedom, and justice for all. And you have a democratic republic.
If you don't have a government, you'll definitely not have a say because Walmart will own you.
But then you also have big businesses that have come in. So I mean, there are
that should be taken
forces.
Out of government. That shouldn't have no. That's throwing weight around too much in government.
Well, shoulda, coulda, woulda, man. If ifs and nuts were candies and butts, or if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas.
Separation of business and state.
That means absolutely nothing. Like it should be this way. Like it means nothing. Like gets you absolutely nowhere.
The same thing. Church tied with government. The same thing with church being tied to government is now what business is right now. You can't you can't separate the two.
No, wait. So you're saying you can't separate money and politics? Like it's just impossible?
No. I want that.
I'm not saying you.
I'm just saying like
I'm actually responding to someone else. Like I think we agree actually, but like I'm actually responding to someone else. Like he said like that like separating money and politics is like pie in the sky, like something about nuts or something, like saying that that's a measurable and specific goal.
It was succeeded in church, so it can be done with business. It can be taken out. People can take power. They can force it out. Bernie showed it can be done. He doesn't take a dollar from anybody.
That's what Bernie Sanders did.
And he lost 2 presidential elections.
Well, that has nothing to do with. That's not.
You can't. If the argument, if the proposition is that you cannot separate government from money from politics, and your counterexample is somebody that lost for not taking money, then you completely freaking clown world here.
Well, and also
Biden would have still won. Biden would have still won.
Well, also, I'm going to tell you right now. Anytime you're trying to bring up politics and you refer to a specific person, you've lost right there at that point. Like you're no longer arguing about a specific point or a policy. You're arguing about this specific person. Well, this person agrees with what I agree with. You've lost. Like that argument is done. So if you're going there, just don't.
I'm referring to something specific. I'm saying that money being separate from politics, which is a specific government position that can be attained. It's measurable and specific. Like that, we could have super PACs, bam. We could have public funding for elections. I could get into a bunch of specifics.
Absolutely.
It was that before, right?
Yeah.
But government wasn't. I mean, business wasn't really into government. It kind of moved into it.
And honestly, think of what you're talking about is like Bernie Sanders losing, 2 elections is like that just shows how infested our political system has become. But that's not even how it exists around the world and how it was even, before the 70s.
I'm saying it's not a counter example. Someone said you can take someone said you can take money out of politics because Bernie Sanders is not a counterexample. He's the exact example of how actually you cannot take money out. You can try, but guess what? The people that have the most resources and the best ability to use them efficiently are going to win.
You don't think people can just choose? And you don't think people can just vote?
I would say
people can't just vote.
If you want to take,
you can't vote for somebody you don't know about.
We'll start talking about Hoover and fucking these guys back before there was fucking big donor contributions and corporations
to a certain point. It doesn't matter how much money you have.
Fucking,
there's a saturation point with money.
There is a saturation point. There absolutely is, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt y'all, but I'm gonna head off. Good night. It's been a few hours on this.
Later, Grim. But what matters is the people who are making the money off of that. And people think the only money I can take in is off of direct contributions. Bull fucking shit. Somebody can set up a PAC, and then all of a sudden they can start taking care of any sort of travel expenses that you have. We're going to cover that. So all of a sudden they're not paying any sort of travel. They're not paying any sort of they're not paying for any of the food they eat. They're not paying for insurance. They're not paying for all these things that come into play that literally we have no way to track. And that's based off money in politics. And that's
I think what you're talking about though is how bad
Citizens United. Citizens United paved the fucking path for that shit.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is how bad the American system has become. But saying that money in politics is inherently impossible. There are countries just today, in Europe, that pretty much have largely accomplished a lot of the objectives that are trying to be accomplished by the people that are trying to get money out of politics. And even before
Europe is
the 70s, even before the 70s, to an extent, we had a large removal of money in politics, but it just got to such a bad extent now that it's almost impossible to imagine removing it. So, I agree right now it's so bad that it's difficult to fix, but saying that's different than saying that it's inherently impossible to remove money in politics conceptually.
No.
How do you think that happened? By the way, how do you think that happened?
I did not say it was inherently impossible.
How did you think it became?
What I said is it's basically trying to get somebody off heroin. I think that's about basically we are with money in politics. Is try to get an addict off heroin.
Okay, so I'm not sure anyone can point to a society where the politics wasn't. I don't think anyone can point to a society throughout all of history where power and influence, as measured by money, wasn't one of the main factors in who ascends the hierarchy of that society.
Not in an absolutist kind of way, all or nothing.
No, I'm just saying. You point to one in history that long.
Spartan society.
Here's what I would propose.
The king's wives owned all the land. Owned all the land in Sparta.
America.
Sparta was the people who really came to the cream of the crop were warriors, and that was
the king's wives owned all the land in Sparta.
Obviously they're kings, but that's
and they were also the ones with all the money.
England was very wealthy and it was very powerful. And it succeeded.
And we don't have money in politics. Is that what you're saying?
No, but here's what I would say is
Thomas Jefferson was the one that wrote the Declaration of Independence. Do you think he was a poor guy? Do you think he was just average, or was he the 1% of the 1%? How about Benjamin Franklin? Was he a poor guy?
Versus England and its
John
military.
Adams, poor guy. John Adams, poor guy.
Poor guy.
No. Every single one of those motherfuckers was a 1% of the 1%.
America was poorer than England.
Countries,
and it was less powerful.
Countries in Europe, though, are measurably have less amount of money in politics. But I don't agree. It's it's anything's really accomplishable in an absolutist kind of way. But
countries, I'm saying point to one specific counterexample.
America.
No.
Yes.
I know not
It's
America.
revolution.
Let Doctor hold
I know
on.
not
Let
America.
Doctor finish.
I know not
Hold on.
America.
Let
Here's,
Doctor
here's what I'm saying.
finish.
Hello. Wait, so I'm saying, like, if you were to say, like, point to one country, you're talking about in an absolutist way having no money in politics ever having any intervention at all. I mean, that I don't think that's. I think that would be very accomplishable and very difficult to point to. But the only thing that could be pointed to is
I can
countries.
point to one. I can point to one. Hitler's Germany.
Okay, Hitler's. So
no money in politics there.
Yeah, so
I don't think you can point. I don't think you can point to one. I don't think you can point to one.
Okay,
but
so
the
only.
only
Can I even make my argument? Can I even make my argument here? Okay, so what I'm saying is, what has happened is, in terms of like what has been accomplishable, is in countries in Europe they have been able to coalesce their government to have measurably a lot less money interest in politics than we do, and that was even accomplishable in our country a while ago. So I'm saying that it's an ideal that could be no. But I just want to make one final point. I'm just saying it's simply an ideal that could measurably be worked towards. But as far as a society that is completely eradicated, I would agree with you that it's probably not. There's nothing really to point to unless some crazy fringe example of like maybe you could even consider Nazi Germany. I'm not sure you could even say that was without money in politics at all. But
Europe's way regulated than America. Way more regulated than America.
No, hold on. The Germany example is completely and 100% fucking wrong. There's no fucking two ways about it. If you don't understand like what happened with the Weimar Republic and what led into fucking World War II and what they actually did and fucking how much money mattered to that fucking situation, like come on, dude.
Well,
Doctor,
money
doctor,
mattered to it, but the heads of the Workers' Party were not all rich people.
No, they weren't all. They weren't all rich people. But basically,
that's what I'm talking about. The people that were close to the top of the political class were not wealthy.
Not entirely true.
No, they're very wealthy people.
So even that is not a counterexample then.
Well, not everybody was wealthy. I agree.
America was part of
there
England,
were
and it was wealthy, and it was powerful, and it succeeded.
Yeah.
So even that is not a counterexample. Okay, so we have no counterexample of
I
the
just
claim
gave you
that
one.
money is inseparable from politics.
No. So here's what I said though. Here's what I said though. You're not going to have a society that we have completely eradicated it 100%. But what I am saying is that we have countries that exist today, and even in our country that a while ago, not obviously now, that have measurably worked towards that ideal. But I'm just saying that's something that's a workable ideal, whether it's something that we can actually point to right now or in the past that has 100% eradicated it. So I'm saying that I'm just saying it's merely provable that's a workable ideal, but not something that has ever been fully accomplished in an absolutist way. So it's like you're conflating the two, and it's like you're seeing black and white.
I'm not conflating
gray as well.
Yeah,
and just because you're wealthy don't mean you have money in politics. You're not using it in a way to throw your weight around. Some people that are rich aren't for that.
Well, things aren't absolute.
We're talking about money corruption.
We have an absolutist measure. You're saying like point to one country that has completely eliminated money in politics. That's an absolutist. That's binary.
I didn't say completely. I didn't say completely. You said that.
Yeah.
You're straw manning me.
So if that's true, then I can point. Okay, so then if that's true, then I can point to many countries. Europe, like many of the countries in Europe, have even they don't even allow business people to run politics. They have measurably way less money in politics than us. And then even in our country, based on the way we governed and the way we have legislation in place. Even our country, we had measured because of certain bills and regulations that were in place in our country. Even we had measurably less money in politics. So that's proof that's a workable solution.
I don't think that's the point that Doctor was making. Doctor was said, like, I think initially you said like, hey, we need like money completely out of politics, something along those lines of like money in politics ruins everything. And Doctor made the point of like, well, not necessarily, and I think that's where we've been sort of back and forth from here.
My point is that the people who have the most money and the most power and influence, as measured by money, and the ability to use it efficiently will rise to the top of any political structure.
And they dictate the outcome.
But do you think that's morally right, Doctor? Do you think?
I'm just describing it is. I'm not trying to put an on that.
No, I think.
So the more money you
Couture,
win, and the less money
is
you
trying to get
lose.
to an odd.
So the more money equals a win, and the less money equals a loss.
More money sure gives you an advantage.
I mean, I'm simply saying that there are European countries that have bills and laws and regulations in place that made it so that removing money in politics is a workable ideal, but isn't something we fully eradicated. That's what's been proven.
I don't think it's a workable ideal either.
Yeah, but okay, so workable ideal means you've done X amount of work and then you've made like a proportional amount of progress. That's a workable ideal.
I think it's an anti-ideal. I think it's an anti-ideal in a capitalist system because the money accumulates with the people that are the most productive in society, and the people that are most productive in society should be the ones making the decisions about what the rules are.
You're saying if you make the most money that you're the most productive. That's what you're saying.
That's monarchism.
Yeah, that's not.
If you make the more money you are, the more productive you are. Like that's crazy. There's no measure to that. There are people that sit on a company and they inherited it and they do nothing all day. They're not more productive than maybe the best engineers that work for that company.
They're managing the distribution of resources, which is probably the most important thing there is to do.
They could have inherited it and they could be sleeping all day. Like
management of resources can easily be done by AI at this point. So it's not like it's.
You sound like you're pro monarchy.
It's like this amazing thing that humans can do that can manage resources. Like, have you been a manager, Doctor? Have you been a manager, Doctor?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, you realize there are certain times when you're a manager where what you need to do is put into place the specific situations that'll make your workers benefit, will contribute way more effort. So this is something that I found, like there are certain times or certain people like they might be like better at this specific task, and I'll like assign them to that and they like can do really well. And that doesn't mean there's something special about me at all. Like that's I am still just a cog in the machine the same way as they are, and I don't think
if you believe that
about me,
so you're pro oligarchy
way more money than
if you believe that would be like appointing the entire Walmart family to run the world. Like if you follow the logic, like they're the most richest people, and then you would say, okay, they're the most productive and best. They should run the world. Walmart, the Walmart family.
Walmart should rule the world. Everything should be Walmart.
I don't know if they were 100%. Okay, it's like a joke.
Fucking here comes Nivek with that sarcasm.
I don't think you get to the extent that they actually do. I don't think you understand the extent to which a few families really do run the entire global economy.
Yeah, there are.
Is it to a large extent, a small extent? What are you saying?
It's to a large. I think it's to a very large extent.
So is that good or bad?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Are you saying that that's what we want or what exists?
Yeah.
Well, you just said that the more like wealthy you are, the more productive you are, the more fit they are to lead. So why not just point them to run the society?
They do lead. No, they do lead.
And anything else trying to poke its head and stomp on it.
No,
anything else.
So the ideal of
anything else you get squashed.
The ideal of saying that we need to take the people who have if you understand money the way that I do, my understanding of it is that you don't accumulate money from stealing from other people. You accumulate money from providing more value to someone for the services that you're providing.
Well, you could
than the cost of those services.
Is there an element of time in there also? And what I mean by
All
that
that
is,
time, yeah.
Natural leaders tend to rise to the top, productive wise, meritocracy wise, however you want to look at it in the beginning. And then over time, as they retain that power over time, that tends to ossify, that tend to become corrupt. And that's where we see the turnover.
And that's why we don't want anyone to have too much.
Too.
That's why we don't want to. We don't want anyone to have too much power, right? That's
what would happen, though.
Separation of powers and stuff. So,
but how is it too much power if it's
taking money,
earned according to their own productivity by your own measure that you just
taking
said?
money out of politics. What it does is take influence away from.
No, wait, but I have a question. Wait, but I have a question for you. I have a question for you.
If you have that system of wealthy people
you're saying the
running,
Walmart. You're saying the Walmart family, though, that their amount of money is rightfully earned because it wasn't stolen. It was based on their productive means, right? You just said that the only way they could earn that money.
It was based
originally.
It was based on
dropping a Walmart bomb in the
way
middle of an area and wiping out all businesses.
Yeah, that's an extremely counterproductive way of looking at it. If you lived in like rural Missouri, out in the middle of BFE, and you live on a farm, like you want to go, like Zombie Chick wants to go live on a farm, and it's 150 freaking miles to the nearest store where you can get anything other than just basic needs. Walmart turned that around and took all those people in the middle of BFE, Missouri, and gave them a life of dignity.
Well, there's good in it, and there's also bad.
Yeah,
the reason why they made so much money is because they did way more good than bad, and the fact that they had enough to do that much, the fact that they had enough vision to do that much good means that they should have a lot more say in the rules than somebody who has not done anything.
But I'm confused. Didn't you just say that they shouldn't because they shouldn't have that much power? Didn't you just say they shouldn't have that much power?
I didn't say. I said nobody should have all the power.
Okay, so how much?
There has to be a balance of power.
So do they have do they have an appropriate amount of power? No more, no less, or like what would you say?
I think they have a relatively appropriate amount of power because you got to realize there's all kinds of other rich people that are they also want power, and as long as there's a struggle, and people
have to influence the system and then have legislation based on what they want. Though they get subsidies, they don't pay any taxes, so you should pay taxes, but they shouldn't have to pay taxes.
Who doesn't pay taxes?
No, like for example, Amazon doesn't pay any taxes. Well, like Walmart, they pay very little taxes.
Amazon doesn't pay any taxes.
No, yeah, zero corporate tax. They pay no corporate taxes at all. They just evaded them all, and they got a bunch of subsidies.
So Amazon does get a lot of subsidies. One of the ways they get subsidies is they come into a city with a giant warehouse, a massive distribution center, and they promise to hire thousands and thousands of people who would not otherwise have jobs in many cases. And they make a deal with the local politicians. And they say, okay, I will build this factory over here in this desolate part of town where there's
people don't have a problem with them being wealthy. It's being oppressive and killing opportunity.
That's why they don't pay taxes.
And taking away from society.
They make a contract with the politicians
kill
that you
people's
elected.
opportunities.
Yeah, but do you think they needed that subsidy to be able to accomplish that? Do you think they needed that subsidy and that tax rate to accomplish that?
Well, I'm not necessarily pro Amazon.
Okay, but you're saying that the amount of money you have should have tied to how productive you are and how much you get to have a say in with the government. So
yeah, absolutely.
He says more productivity comes from it. That's not true because you kill people's opportunity. People can more contribute if do their opportunity. Yeah, because I'm not. I have an issue with people being wealthy, but if you do it in a way where it's crony and it's about oppressing other people by taking out competition, yeah, that's taking away opportunity. That's taken away from society. You're not giving to society. Your society advances when more people move upward, and they can come up with different ideas and competing against you, and it drives competition. It drives innovation, and it makes society advance. You're just talking about one world, a Walmart rule.
I did not say one world Walmart rule. I did not. You're totally strawmanning it. I'm just saying that I
powerful.
think that taking all money out of politics is not an ideal. I think it's an anti-ideal. That's all I'm saying.
There's a place for the
How's that?
incentive, but it shouldn't go unchecked.
How's it an anti-ideal though? What makes removing money out of politics bad?
Okay,
I don't understand.
What would the world look like
Without a Walmart?
if the most productive people in our society could not influence the direction of our society?
Let's put it this way. Suppose a horse and buggy. Can I ask you? Suppose a horse and buggy industry wanted to.
But you're making a false premise saying that the richer you are,
No,
the
I'm
more
not.
money you have
I'm
to
asking you
influence.
to. I'm asking you to.
Yeah, but you are. No, but you're saying that
I'm
like,
asking
having
you
the
to
more money
envision
you,
a future. Asking you to envision the future, which you say is your ideal, and describe what it would look like. I'm not making a
I
premise.
don't agree with your premise. Your premise is crazy.
I'm
Your
not
premise is
making a
saying,
premise. You're making a premise. You said the ideal world is one where there's no fucking money in politics. And I said,
yeah, but
okay,
you
what does
framed it
that
with a
world look like?
premise.
No, that's your premise. You said the
Of wealthy
ideal.
people having
You
to.
said the ideal situation is where is no money in politics. Take the money out of politics.
No, you said.
And I'm
So I want to
saying that's
repeat
not.
back
No,
what
that's
you
an
just. Okay,
anti-ideal.
I want to repeat back what you just said. I want to repeat back what you just said. You actually did say that, like, okay, so you want to envision a world where the most productive people don't have a say. That's a premise that's saying the most wealthy and influential people and money in politics is more productive. That's the premise. So saying that you just didn't make that premise is kind of just like, I'll remind you what you said, but that's framing it.
It sounds like you're just. It sounds like you're
premise.
just. It sounds like you're assuming that people that have money are not productive.
No, you assumed that because that's what you just like said. Removing money in politics is.
No, I'm saying that the most influential people in our society should be the most productive, the most ingenious, people that understand how the world works.
So how would removing money in politics be a threat to that? How would moving money in politics be a threat to that?
If you removed money from politics,
shoulda, coulda, woulda. That doesn't mean they shoulda, could. They should have been this. They should have been that. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. So if you removed all the money from politics, then no matter how successful you are in life, you can't influence politics.
Your viewpoint
exactly.
is false.
You're determining success based on money, how much money you can influence in politics. That's my point. That's the premise you're slipping in there. That's undeniable.
Your viewpoint is false.
What's the other view of success?
Your viewpoint is false. It's like the horse and buggy industry taking out technological innovation in transportation and not wanting
by removing
competition.
money in politics and having the public decide what's best for it. That's the alternative. You would have public funding for elections. You would have, let's say, like, universal healthcare where like 40,000 people don't die because of like, they just can't afford it and all that and all kinds of things. Like you wouldn't just say like that, like someone who's more productive is then based on money. So then they tell all. Then if it's not pertaining to their interest, then it won't.
The money in politics is important so that the most productive people and the most ingenious people can influence the direction of our society.
Wait, you don't understand your own argument is a problem. Like you're saying that you're tying money in politics with more productive. That's what you're doing. Like you're saying that you're not saying that.
Yeah.
Like.
Wait, no. I'm saying what I'm saying is my premise is that people become wealthy by being more productive and by creating more value for the other people around them. That's how they get the money.
So some people,
the way that they're more productive is by more efficiently allocating capital.
Your vision
Some people are more productive by being brilliant managers. Some people are more productive by inventing things. Some people.
Can I respond to you, please?
But your
vision of more productive is false. That's like the horse and buggy industry saying because we're more productive, we're very powerful. We should set the standards. And what are the standards? It's about taking out technological technological innovation and competition because they don't want a competitive threat. That doesn't advance society. And that's what cronyism. That's what corrupt cronyism does. They're not more productive because opportunity potential is of what can be is more productive. And you're supposed to have a society to have that. You don't want these crony bums wanting to rig the system just because they ended up getting more money than everybody, and then they start kicking ladders and burning bridges. Like
they didn't just end up.
Also, Doctor, you are making a fundamental mistake of trying to make an ought from an is at that point. So you're saying here's something that is this way. So
he's talking monarchism.
And that's I'm not. I mean, I don't really want to get to monarchyism. I'm just talking about like in a pure philosophical sense. You're trying to make a statement that is an ought from an is, and I think that's where you're
What
having
did I say?
problems.
What did
Okay,
I
so
say
wait,
is an ought?
here it is. It's like you're chaining how much money you can contribute to politics with being productive, and you're saying like, oh, so you want a society where a bunch of unproductive people are calling the shots. That implies that
but
you're
I have
saying
a
the most wealthy and
question.
influential people should be in charge.
That was monarchy's argument against America. The peasants rule
Wait, but
of
Dr.
the people.
Doolittle, but why should somebody being productive? Why would you want that person to be more influential in politics? I don't understand.
Why would you want somebody who
That was the argument
is
against
a
America.
why would you want somebody who's a bum voting on what the rules are?
That was the argument against America.
No, it should it should really just be determined on who's going to represent the interests of most of the people there. That doesn't necessarily hinge upon productivity. I actually agree with that because, like, how productive someone isn't going to be like
posited.
How much good
posited-
they do for society is what I'm
Look,
talking about.
Dr. Doolittle, you've posited a false
People
dichotomy.
self-governing. People
Right, you're
self-governing
saying
rule.
that just because somebody is unproductive, right, that
They're
means that
worthless.
they're like a bum or worthless. Yeah. The idea is that, how economically productive you are should have no bearing on whether you
Your
have
value.
political influence. You could be like a bum ass person
That's
who
where
doesn't
voting
make any
came in.
money, right? But the point is you could still be very politically, right? And so the point is whether or not you're good at making money should have no influence or bearing, right, on how much political power you have, right? Because it's irrelevant, right?
That's where voting came in. That's how America was created.
The only thing that would be relevant is what policy would benefit the most people. How is that chained to productivity?
Right.
Productivity is nice, but how is that chained to productivity?
For example, a lot of people will make this mistake, and this is tied to survivorship bias, but also a lot of other biases. They'll look at someone who's like a billionaire, someone who's really wealthy, and they'll say, I'm going to ask this person, and a lot of like CNN and Fox News, a lot of those like news channels do this. They'll go to like some rich guy and say, hey, you're rich. How's the economy going to play out? Right. But just because you're rich, it doesn't mean you know how the economy plays out.
Who inherited his money?
Some people might have made their money literally just by accident. They might have put their money into a stock because they thought it was good and ended up making millions of dollars. Just happenstance, right?
Doctor,
Here's another thing with the false dichotomy thing, because you're saying it's kind of like Dr. Doolittle was making like an absolutist argument, saying we're either gonna let like the absolute riches lead or some bum on the streets. It's like it can't just be representative of most people.
I'm countering you guys have to realize that you're putting a lot of thoughts in my mind. I'm countering your claim that the ideal situation is to not have money in politics.
Right. So what's
you made a claim? Okay, you made a claim which you cannot substantiate. You have no idea what the world looks like with no money in politics. Okay, if I was to make money, which I have done in my life, and I did that by doing good in the world, and I want to use that money that I earned and influence politics with it, that's absolutely my right.
Why?
Why does it matter about race?
You're not to influence it.
I'm not allowed to influence politics because I have money.
Shouldn't influence.
Okay,
I'm not allowed to spend the resources.
Determine the entire.
All you do is vote.
Spend the resources that I
vote.
accumulated.
That's it. All you do is vote.
Oh, wait a minute. But I could just say that hey, I made a lot of money. If tomorrow I get accused of a crime and I want to pay off the judge, it's my right. You know what I mean? Like, it's my money. It's my right to bribe the judge to let me go. It's a consensual transaction. What's wrong with that?
Pretty much.
You know what I mean? It's just like a retarded argument. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like
you don't have
like
the
your
right.
only
You don't have the
argument.
right to.
What
Your
does
only
that have to
argument
do with
against
using money?
taking money out of politics is
That's a
flipping in a
different
false
argument.
premise.
That's a different argument being
Is
made
it?
altogether.
Yeah, that's entirely
Right. The
different.
idea
I'm just
is
saying.
that
Okay,
the
so
reason.
what you're saying is that if I accumulate resources by doing good in the world and trading for them, that I'm not allowed to use those resources to influence policy.
No, man, you just keep
To
making your
influence
money. You
politics.
stay out of. You stay.
To
You
put.
stay
How
out
about
of.
putting
You
up?
stay out
How
of
about
it.
putting up? How about putting up
You
ads?
vote. That's it.
How do you know who to vote for if somebody doesn't put up an ad?
Well, nobody's saying that people shouldn't
Okay,
put up
public funding
ads.
for elections. That's how public funding for
How do you
elections,
pay for?
like campaigns would be tax
the ad?
allocated.
You
Tax,
have it
tax
publicly
money.
funded.
Tax money.
Who decides who gets to see who gets to be on an ad from public funds?
Signatures, pay signatures. They do this in other countries. They vote. They get enough signatures, and they get to run. And then
How do
they
you
have an
get?
equal
How do
amount of
you?
time in the
How do you
media.
pay for the? How do you pay for the people
Tax
that
money.
went around
Tax
getting
money.
your signatures?
At the end
Tax
of the
money.
day,
Oh,
the
For
voting
taxes.
makes the decision.
At the end
It's
of the
all
day,
within the.
somebody's got to pay for something.
At the end of
Yeah,
the
No,
day,
it's all
voting makes
self-contained.
the
I know the government does with taxes
At
in
the
other
end of the
countries.
day,
That's how
voting
public
makes the
funding for elections
decision.
work.
At the end of the day, voting makes a decision. So you can drop $1 trillion. It wouldn't.
Yeah,
There's
if
a
you're a trillion,
saturation.
yeah,
There's
if
a
you're like a
saturation
trillionaire and you
point. It's not
allocated
gonna.
more resources, as you said, that doesn't mean you should have more of a say in how the government moves forward or not.
You're
Like,
not going to.
But
It's a saturation point. You're not. You could drop. If you drop it, it's just not gonna. I mean, look what happened to Bloomberg. Jesus, he didn't. He went nowhere. He thought he could buy the election.
Good.
He blew his
If he wasn't
cash.
competent enough, cash
Well,
shouldn't.
but it's like there's
Cash
a
shouldn't
false
be the only
preposition.
metric.
Yeah, but
Certainly
there's
not
like
the
a
only
false
measure, but it's
preposition.
not. But you can't completely separate money from politics.
Right.
Okay, now
Well,
you're
no.
yeah, but you,
If you
But it's not.
if
it's
It's
like
you
not
you're
going to
only
the world
decide it.
arguing in
the
absolutism.
world that you no the world that you live in, where there's no money in politics,
No, man.
is
We're
not
talking about money.
it's not functional at all. It's
We're talking
completely
about money
dysfunctional.
deciding. We're talking about money making decisions.
You're
And
yeah,
You're
but
talking about taking a dysfunctional world and making that your ideal. That's completely bullshit.
oh man, your
there's no
argument is that
dysfunction.
money should make decisions. Money should decide, and then the voters decide. Because at a certain point, no matter how much money you put, it's not going to matter.
No, then you have power and control.
When he's not saying money should decide, he's saying money is a part of it.
That's what he
He's
said.
not
He
saying
said like
money
Walmart
It
should
has
rule
to
the
be.
world.
Yeah, but you contribute
No.
with what? The resources themselves? Like, I'll give you a farm, like, for this policy. No, it's money. You're talking about them making money because of all the resources and then making a political donation, right? We didn't give them a farm, a sheep. What do you mean? It's money.
Why do you think politicians campaign so hard to people? Because they need their vote. They really need their votes.
Yeah, they need to vote, man.
Wait, but like,
But
what
they
I'm saying
can't
is, like,
campaign without money.
how do you campaign without money?
You can't. You
No,
can't
you would have.
campaign
Okay,
without money.
no,
You'd have
no,
to
no,
live in a society where everything is free.
Yeah,
No, it would
but
be
money's
bad
not
if
going to
it's
make
free.
it.
It would be.
Money's not going to
There's
decide it. There's a
a
saturation
proposal called
point.
public funding for elections, where if you get a certain amount of signatures, and then they'll be able to run an ad, and then they'll be able to run as an equal person running for an office. It's like it's all. It would be. There's a way to tax allocate this issue, whereas all tax
we had
all
that.
get paid
We
through
had that up
taxes.
in the United States. We had that up until like the '60s. Like that was how things ran. You know, we had public run.
And politics was a family business back then.
Not really. It was a lot less corrupt than today, and we had a lot much better policies than today in the '60s from now.
So how come Bloomberg didn't beat Biden?
That question to me.
No,
because he's an asshole. Because he's an asshole.
Exactly.
Money isn't the only metric in play, though.
It's not the only. It's not the only thing. But if you completely removed money, then there's no way to make
Well, we
the whole
understand
thing
that,
move.
but
And you're just saying you're changing who controls the money from a person who is wealthy, and my argument is that they're wealthy mostly because they did good for society. You're taking the power to allocate that money away from individuals, and you're giving it to a centralized person in government, and maybe you're giving it to a bureaucracy. I don't know who you're giving the power to allocate money.
it's about influencing.
You're saying the government pays for it.
No,
you're
but
taking
you're
taking money. You're taking the influence
made.
away from individuals who earned that influence, and you're giving it to an unelected bureaucracy.
No, you're saying
what's
that,
better? What's better to have? Like who narrows it down to the top
that.
10 candidates? Who narrows it down to the top 10 candidates? Is it an unelected bureaucracy that's appointed by whoever the last president was? That's gerrymandering, buddy.
So is money that beat Trump?
If Walmart has a massive influence in politics, that doesn't mean that people that influences the people's will. That just means they have made more money. That doesn't mean they're better and they represent
you're completely blind. You
way
don't have
more.
any damn will. You don't get to vote for someone you don't know exists.
Yeah. People who elect people, they don't elect the people who pay them. They're not wondering, oh, is it the Koch brothers or
You don't
George
get to
Soros?
elect someone. You are not free to elect someone that you don't know exists.
Why don't George Soros run and win the election?
So hold on, Doctor. In that same position, if everything is
George
just
Soros would be
run
the
through
president
companies, do you have any fucking right at all? Do you have any say at all who is the comptroller to the company that you fucking pay insurance to?
Do I have say in that?
Yeah, do you have any say at all? Because I remember, like, this is something like people talked about, like death panels with Barack Obama. Like, you do realize every insurance company,
they all have death panels.
Yeah, every insurance company across the entire fucking United States has a death panel, but it's nameless faces comptrollers that you have no fucking effect on. And so,
right, but my point is that
when it comes down to so if you're in a position where you have this nameless faceless person that you have no control over, but then you also have somebody who's a nameless faceless person, that at least you can elect somebody that might have some control over that. Which is the better choice? Would you rather be in a position
as you said, as everyone said before,
vote?
absolute power corrupts absolutely. And if you give the power to show you who the top 6 guys are, to the power to even show you who's even running for election to someone who's already in power, then that concentrates power a lot more. It does not diffuse power.
So the argument that made the Democrats win is that they're richer.
No, well,
that was the
to
argument.
Point, though,
no, the argument is that if you earned money, you can spend it any damn way you want, including spending it on influencing people and spending it on promoting people that you like, that you think are good people. If you can spend your money on whatever the fuck you want to spend it on.
Some more money, more power. That's what that is.
Soros spends a lot of money on politics.
So why don't he run?
That's bad too.
Soros has more influence over politics by not running and promoting people that he thinks are going to do things that he wants them to do.
Yeah, so is that good or bad?
You are right.
Is that good or bad?
Come on now.
No, he's right on. How do you think
that's bad, isn't it?
How do you think that all of our
just like the Koch brothers, though? You know, I mean, all that shit's like, you know, I remember like in the early 2000s, it was all about the Koch brothers, and that was like everybody's freaking out about the goddamn Koch brothers, and all of a sudden it's George Soros. And in 5 years, it's going to be somebody fucking else.
Oh no! Well, no. Soros is the boogeyman of Fox News listeners, and the Koch brothers are the boogeyman of MSNBC listeners.
well, when I just look at it all, it's all fucking ridiculous, right?
It's billionaires fighting billionaires. That's what the system is. That's what politics is.
But have you looked at all the district attorney races in the last 3 years in the major inner cities?
No, I haven't. I don't. Tell us about it.
Where is?
I know what you're talking about.
I'll post a couple articles on funding of those and a bigger plan as to, and it's panned out actually. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I think that's bullshit stuff.
Well, Soros is liberal, isn't he?
But I'm living in Portland, Oregon, and being affected by it. And that's
Soros is Soros.
I want to move to
he's not liberal
now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
George Soros funds the Sierra Club, and he also owns part of Petrobras. So,
also he's a far right conservative.
Yeah, but shouldn't a policy be dictated by it being measurably best for them to positively affect most people? Isn't that why a policy should be in place? not because someone that can influence them did influence them.
Right. So if you had all the power to select your politicians centralized in somebody who's already a politician, then it's really just whoever's the most brutal motherfucker is going to win and control everything.
But your argument is the wealthy that's more productive.
I mean, we like you would vote on it, so it's not like people would vote and then their votes would disappear and burn, and then it would turn into some other vote towards some other.
You can't
person.
vote on someone you don't know exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you would know they exist, and then you'd vote for them.
No, you wouldn't.
That's what
Why
happened.
do you think you would know they exist? Who's going to tell you?
Because the government would have tax allocated money that would run ads equally, and not based on how much money people made, which is how public funding for elections works. That's how you know they exist.
And they could just, run a campaign. Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean public funding for elections exists, it would essentially use that money to run ads, but it would be in a proportionate and fair way. It wouldn't be based on affluence.
Yeah. No, this is
they track the money.
Yep, this has been done in the United States before.
But it's not exactly proportional because everyone that wants to run doesn't get public funding. You have to have a certain prominence already before you can even get public funding.
Yeah, but it would be based on the people signing signatures and everything. It would be based on a mobilization within the people. So that'd be fine. It'd be a grassroots movement.
A grassroots movement for who? For someone you don't know exists?
No, you wouldn't know they exist. That's how you would know they exist, because they would have to have so many signatures to even get in the race and then get the tax funding for their
why would
campaign.
why would anyone sign a petition for someone they don't know exists?
You would know they exist, and that's why you'd support them. That's why you'd sign. I don't know. It keeps imposing that they don't exist. You don't know they exist. You would totally know they exist. That'd be the point.
That's going down a weird argumentative line, because how can you say anybody exists at that point if you're making that point? So how do you know they?
You have to have a certain.
I've never met that person.
Advertising.
Yeah, I just said there would be tax allocated money for ads. I don't know why you can't understand that.
Well, have you ever met Ted Cruz in person?
No.
Well, how do you know he exists? How do you know he exists? That could all
could have been a body double.
We have seen that plenty of times over and over. How do you
No,
know
I don't think. No, I don't think you get. There's a chicken and the egg. There's a chicken and egg as far as there's a chicken and the egg problem in getting your foot in the door in politics. If there's independent money that's able to promote people in politics, then
independent money, not funded by a super PAC.
You do have that. You have that problem.
Yeah, super PACs don't fund random people either.
Well, I'm sure if they had their way,
they don't.
Voting out.
They pay a lot of people pay a lot of money for it. I know that it's not random.
Actually, they did. I just saw some article about a super PAC promoted somebody.
I'm sure if some people could take voting out of governing, they would do it. That are wealthy. They'd completely take it out. That's if they could.
Yeah, I mean, that's already happened pretty much according to many studies, because there's no.
But why not? Why not though? Right? Because they're powerful and they're wealthy. I'm sure they would agree with that.
I mean, effectively, it's already been accomplished, too. Yeah.
It's not.
That was the argument of against America with self-governing rule. People ruling over themselves.
So anyway, my argument is simply that if you go down the route that you towards the ideal, when you finally get there, taking all the money out of politics, it's a much worse place than we are now. It's less personal freedom. You have less choice over what to do with your own money. You have less say over who the politicians get to be. It's more concentrated power. It's a much worse place. That's my argument.
America rebelling against
it would be equal. That's all it would be. It would be equal.
I do not think you made that argument at all, Doctor. I mean, if that's the argument you're trying to make, I'd need a lot more evidence.
I'm talking about what does the world look like when all money is out of politics?
No, you're saying a wealthy person should rule over everybody.
Yeah,
Not without
That's
checks
not.
and
I did not
balances.
say.
Again,
I
we can
didn't
point
say.
to
I
a bit
didn't
of
say.
less
I didn't
money in
say wealthy
politics, and
people.
we
I
can
said
show how
wealthy
much
people
better
should
results
have
they
the right
have.
to do what they want with their own money.
Well,
Yeah, but that's not corrupting people.
all
Not
money
corrupting
out of
people.
politics is like trying to say a married bachelor. Like that's like it makes no sense. Like
We're
a
not
bachelor
talking
by
about all money out of
definition is not
politics.
married. Like having no money in politics makes no sense.
That's
There's
not the
obviously
argument.
going to be like certain amount of money in politics, right?
Well,
There's no
that's
way
exactly what I was. That's what I was
go
defending
around
from
it.
the first.
Yeah.
From the first.
No, but that's
You're talking
There's
about
no way to
you're
get all
talking
money.
about
And even
you're
if you
talking
get
about
there,
the most
even if you're
money.
the
But
dog
that's
that catches the car and you finally get money out of politics, you're going to be in a
no,
place
talking
that's
about
an
the most
where
money.
absolutist.
only
That's an
people in power
absolutist
get to
argument.
choose who gets to run for power.
That's an
No,
absolutist
no,
argument, saying
to
like
a certain point,
we're talking
no.
about
You're
all
the one
money
that
out of
called it an
politics and
ideal.
anything else can't be pointed to.
To a certain
Like
point,
I'm
no.
saying, countries that have moved towards that ideal have
Oh,
better
you're calling
results.
it an ideal, and I'm saying no, that's not an ideal. When you finally catch that car,
There's a saturation point with money.
that
That's
dog
true.
doesn't want to buy you. That dog doesn't want to catch that car. That's not an ideal. That's
Yeah,
not
but you're
what I'm
simply
saying.
saying
most
because
money-
of
is,
yeah,
I
that's only
would-
because
I-
like if you made more money, that money can't be used to have a greater influence on someone else, which is a good
Well-
thing because it would make it so that one policy would have a measurably better effect for most people. But that would not be the case if it's
not
disproportionate
just
with money.
Well,
The
not
most
just
money ain't
that. I
gonna
mean, like
determine
doctor. I
the
mean, like
outcome.
right off the bat with something like long lines of money, like it could easily be demonstrated right off the bat that somebody might pass like a certain law that benefited themselves. So that would be in and of itself a bad outcome. You know, so
Many
I
people
agree
spend a
with
ton of
I
money
agree
and
with,
they lost.
hold on, stop. Just let me finish. And I agree with you, doctor. Like we're not gonna be able to remove money from politics, but this idea of just saying like, oh, because we can't remove money from politics, we should just let fucking whatever happen. I do disagree with that. We need to have like certain rules in place, just like we would with like on a football field, you know, like you can't have like certain
Yeah, I
you
agree
can't
with
do
that.
certain things, or you can't like on a basketball court, you can't take 6 steps without fucking being called for traveling. So you need to have certain rules in place, and that's
Well,
where I
I
come
would
down
agree.
to.
I would agree to that. I would agree to
Yeah.
that.
But you're saying that
I'm not arguing against that at all.
But you're saying that the most should determine things, and the people that spend a lot of money lost. Many people in politics, all states. Many people throughout states, they money a lot, like insane amount of money was thrown, and it made no difference. The Democrats blew tons of money in red
I wouldn't
states.
say
And
made. I wouldn't say it made no
the
difference.
Democrats could spend a quadrillion in Kentucky, and it wouldn't. You know, it's not going to do a thing.
I
You know
wouldn't
what's
say. I
interesting?
wouldn't
You know
say
what's
that.
interesting about
Yeah.
Kentucky is
What
like
are you
all the
talking about? What do you
Oh,
mean?
well, in Kentucky and like West Virginia, you know, it's really fucking strange. There are like certain states where all the local politicians are all Democrats, but
Go look at
for the entire state, they vote for like Donald Trump, which is, you know,
Oh, yeah?
there's no
Okay,
like
but maybe not
exact like
Kentucky then.
one off, one on like for all. I don't know, man. Trying to pigeonhole people and just saying, "Hey, this is how people are, and that's how it is."
And it's always
I think
changing too.
I think you're in the wrong spot. Like, just to start off, like, people are fucking, you know, wild.
And
they're
doctors also
different.
looking at competence as a direct correlation to success, and that measurement to, you know, the best form of measurement that we have on that is influence and money.
So they should rule.
So, well, not only, but it is helpful to the rest of us to have somebody in theory who is very just well versed in business, looking out. You know, I would argue Donald Trump is not a good example of that. I'm not a fan, but someone like Elon Musk would definitely, we would want him to at least have some input. And it
bad.
sounds like you guys are thinking more like Don Jr. and people who kind of fall into money, and people seem to praise them for some reason. I mean, there should be checks against that.
And I would
Are you
say,
for
chick,
oligarchyism?
I'm arguing against these guys, but most of the people who I do know who have like have money like that are like Don Jr. who've just like fallen bass backwards into it, and like all of a sudden they just have money, and it's like, oh, you guys fucking idiots. It's just my personal experience.
That's where the regulations would come in, and we don't know really what that looks like, obviously. But yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, so another thing with taking all the money out of politics, or all the influence from wealthy people out of politics.
You don't want corruption, though.
One of the things that presidents do is they, we got this big problem to solve, and they get a round table with all the freaking CEOs of the biggest companies and all the billionaires, and they say, okay, what do we do about this big societal problem? And Bill Gates says, let's throw all our money at vaccines. And guess what? Donald Trump freaking says, okay, let's throw all our money at vaccines. Let's put all our eggs in that what do you call it? The Operation Warp Speed basket. So
let's screw everybody.
Yeah, so that was all influence from billionaires that made Donald Trump do warp speed. And what if nobody with any money was allowed to influence him? You're just leaving it up to Donald Trump to decide what to do with the pandemic.
Holy shit, dude, that would be a fucking.
That's a fucking stupid clown world. We need the most. Doesn't that just prove it to you? You need money. You need people that are big money with big influence.
That's hilarious, dude.
Or they can get together and say, let's screw everybody.
Yeah, most of the time they're not going to do that, though, or they're not going to get reelected.
No, they wouldn't do something like that.
I mean, except for the central banks. Don't get me started on central banks. But for the most part, I would rather have our politicians being influenced by rich people than not being influenced by them.
Oh boy, we're not going nowhere. We're not getting anywhere.
That's where I disagree. Like I do think politicians need to be like influenced by more people like Mark Twain than Jeff Bezos.
You're anti-democracy.
Like Mark Twain was a goddamn American genius, and like that guy, like he's the kind of guy more Americans should model themselves after than Jeff Bezos, in my opinion.
So you're anti-democracy?
No,
you're pro-monarchy.
Anti-democracy? No. Mark Twain was not pro.
No, I'm saying you want the wealthy to rule, and the elite to rule. It's monarchism, anti-democracy.
How did you get that from Mark Twain? Have you ever read?
No, I'm not talking about Mark Twain. I'm talking to Doctor.
Oh, you're talking Doctor. Okay, sorry.
I think you have cognitive dissonance there, because the tell is you started your
monarchism.
The tell for cognitive dissonance is you started your sentence with "so you think that."
Yeah, that's a straw man right off the bat.
So what I said is that not allowing people to use their money to influence things the way that they want is going the wrong way. We want people that are the most productive, that do the most good for society, that have the most influence. And
I'm saying that
many among those use money to do that. It's a way to.
Yeah, that could be the wrong way towards inequality.
Nivek, hold on, Nivek. Right off the bat, just do this. Take a second and steel man what Doctor is saying. Like, take what he's saying and make the strongest argument that you could possibly agree with, and then hit us with that based on what he said, as opposed to saying like, oh, so you're saying this and that means this.
He's going the wrong way towards inequality.
Well, steel man what he's saying though.
Yes.
Tell us what you think he's
I'm
really
not sure
saying.
what does steel man mean?
That means,
like I said, you give the strongest possible context of what he said. So like what he said, take it to in the sense that, okay, I understand what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying, and I'm going to take it to the farthest possible context.
He said going in the direction of people being wealthy should run things, and they're going in that direction of people running things is heading towards monarchism. It's that same type of rule of just people that are wealthy and powerful should rule, and you have everybody dirt poor peasants. That's what
I don't
would
think
happen.
that's what he's saying at all. If
Wait,
I
can I
have
try that though?
$1,000,
To make a steelman argument.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so I mean, it's not. So I mean, so I guess like the best way of like characterizing like what he's saying is like kind of assuming like let's have the most productive people decide policy. On its face, it doesn't sound bad, but there's a supposition of money being involved with that, which like that, you know, like that would kind of chain the amount of money you have with productivity, which is a false premise. So it sounds good, but then when you break it down to some of the premises made, it kind of falls apart.
What's the guarantee they'll do good for people?
Exactly.
What's the guarantee?
Well, also,
There's nothing holding them.
So if you have individuals that presumably have, someone's best interest in mind, at least their own, they will donate their money, their excess resources, in the manner that they see fit to do. If they're good people, they'll donate their excess resources in a manner that they see fit to do good for society.
Yeah, and that's I do want to get to like Couture's point. I a bit against your point, Doctor, because like even you said if if they want to do this.
Yeah.
So like I don't know if that's necessarily
not good
how you want to build a society of just saying like
one where if there's doubt, then you lean towards freedom.
If doesn't do it.
Well, not necessarily. Like if people agree to a certain thing, that doesn't necessarily negate freedom because they've agreed to it. So that's what societal constructs are. Like people agree to a certain societal standard, and at that point, you're no longer in the position of saying, "Hey, my rights are being taken from me." So. That's the one point that I can get to what Couture is saying was this idea of just because somebody who's made a lot of money, that doesn't necessarily they're going to make the right choice going forward, and that's always what I get back to. It's like just because this person did this, that doesn't mean that they should have any sort of primacy over making choices on my life. Period.
And if the founding fathers was elite rule, they would form a different governance. If the founding fathers was elite rule, they'd form a different form of governance. It probably won't stick with monarchy.
It just kind of it's something that kind of sounds good at its face, but when you break it down to its components, it fails. That's pretty much my argument.
Of course, it will fail. You have corruption. That's what the founding fathers' fear was. You can't. You have to have a check and balance system. You can't be like, okay, these people are very wealthy and powerful and rule. Why? Because they're going to grow and then they're going to corrupt and crap on everybody.
Well, one of the things about America
when
America was founded, there was. You weren't. Not everybody was allowed to vote. Only landowners were allowed to vote.
Very true.
Women weren't allowed to vote. Slaves weren't allowed to vote. Obviously.
Yeah. But it was going in the direction of progress.
average Joes who have not accumulated enough resources to buy their own property, they don't get to vote either.
But it was going in the direction of progress.
Yeah, and that's
what was important.
Well, to me,
it wasn't going back.
That's a fundamentally bad place to be, because then you have
over time things changed.
Well, then you have people who are this specific stratosphere in society that make all the rules, and over like in the short term it might be really good. Those people can make the rules like, oh man, my life's great and all this kind of shit. The long term, it's destined to fail. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
So why put all men are created equal in the Constitution?
Well, regardless of that, like even if you have a system that's built, well, hold on, like even if you have a system that's built where only landowners or only these specific people can vote, like it's destined to fail. And that's why you actually saw, amendments to the Constitution that changed these things, because people realized like, oh, if we keep going down this path, it's going to lead to a road of ruin. So we changed it. and we changed it again, and we changed it again.
Right. So we have universal suffrage, but we also have the, I wouldn't say the right, but we have freedom of speech, and freedom of expression, which essentially gives us the right to try to influence the minds of others.
Absolutely, and we have more freedom of speech now than we did 200 years ago.
But there's a conflation, though, of money and speech in there. Well, like, why can't you just speak?
Yep.
Without money?
Well, that came down to the problem of Citizens United, and
anybody can run for president, right?
Well, Citizens United at some point, I hope that decision gets overturned, because that is, when people talk about money in politics, that is the basic fucking elephant in the room, man. Like, that what that allowed was for anybody to spend a tremendous amount of money on a politician. So there've always been like certain restrictions. Say, look, you can only give a politician this amount of money for their campaign. But then Citizens United came along and then said, okay, what we can do is we can set up these different political action committees that they can spend tens of millions of dollars, and they just have to say, hey, we're not related to this campaign, even though they're running ads for that campaign the entire time. So they can spend money hand over fist, and it's considered free speech. Like, it's a problem. It's a problem.
Well, that's the philosophical question of Citizens United, I guess, is whether a corporation as an entity
yeah, exactly,
counts as a collective of people that are speaking together with one voice.
Exactly.
But generally, is money speech, and you seem to be superseding that it is.
Spending money on something that you think is good, I would say, is an expression of your own ideas. Could be.
But that's a conflation of charity and influencing politics, isn't it?
I didn't say charity.
So then you're influencing a politician who would enact a certain policy that would be in place, which would have a disproportional effect than someone who doesn't have the same amount of money. So then money would be speech.
That's the problem. The disproportional
and having money don't make you a good guy.
The disproportional effect doesn't come from a specific person giving a specific amount of money to a politician. It comes from these shadow groups that have been allowed to propagate, that can do this, that, and the other for a specific campaign.
Yes, transparency is one of the big problems. Lack of transparency.
And having money don't make you moral.
Huge. It's a huge problem.
Having money doesn't make you moral.
No.
You can be a bad person.
Oh, obviously. Yeah.
No, he's saying because you have money, you should run things. I say,
no, that's not what I was saying. Yeah, I'm not saying having money makes you moral. I'm not saying that having money means you get to run things. But I'm saying preventing someone from using money to try to influence things is you go all the way down that road. It's not a place that I want to be. And I was just trying to show you the way.
I thought you were saying because a person has money, they should run, and I'm just saying that doesn't necessarily mean they have good intentions, and.
I think I said in general, as a general statement, more often than not, people come about money by doing good for other people, by doing things like being productive, inventing things.
You have to have an argument.
Jeff Bezos got rich not by exploiting people, but by revolutionizing logistics.
They got some rich douchebags. The rich douchebags out there.
Can I just say I really appreciate Nivek and how much he tries to debate a lot of things that are brought onto this channel. It's really refreshing in a way. Thank you, Nivek.
What do you mean I annoy a lot of people?
Not at all. It's different.
Questions that you ask. You know, then
Well, now that he's not talking about serfs and stuff.
Well, the thing is
because that was getting a little old, and I was going to slap him.
Well, yeah, no, and look, Nivik has already come a fucking long way since he got here. So, and
I recognize.
Yeah, and he's you know, he's, and I think Nivik, you told me that you're quite young, right, brother?
No, I haven't said anything about me.
I think you said that.
Really...
I can't remember what your age was.
28. I
Really?
estimate 28. Yep.
I think he's 20.
No, I think 28. Nivik, who's closer?
I don't get all information on me on the internet.
Oh my god!
Oh, just tell us who's closer.
I'm guessing 19. I'm guessing 19.
Who's closer? It wouldn't even give your age.
Well, what were you saying again?
Just
you said 28?
I guess 20. Zombie guesses 28. Who's closer?
Zombie.
Oh, right in the pills.
Well,
interesting. Yeah, keep it up, Nivik. I'm really enjoying listening to you, brother.
We always have a good back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Then
I like your...
and then that fucking Scott guy on the other hand, we got to get that fucker out of here. Oh, he's off. Oh man.
He must be pooping.
He's probably pooping.
Well, I like it. I like it when people kick me in the balls too. You know, I don't mind it.
In fact, I pay for it.
I don't like it when a person is like easy on me. I want because I'm not emotional driven.
Dude, you like just you like disagreeable people. That's what brought you here. Likely what is keeping you here. What up, Skeptics?
It certainly isn't the university.
Yeah, sorry.
Because a lot of times you see on the internet, you see people, they just want to be told what they want to hear, and you know, you get sick of that.
Oh man,
So I want to hear a person that will say something that would like you know what I mean, that like take us like that would like it kind of hit it's like comes right at me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
Well, what you do is you help people to strengthen their positions, and they can help strengthen yours by those challenges.
Yeah.
And it really benefits everybody.
Yeah, there's definitely a wide variety of viewpoints on this channel.
It brought in my perspective when I
you know, the brand itself, like, try to find another brand out there that is actually a centrist brand that has rules based on not ideology, but based on, you know, engaging in good faith and being helpful. It doesn't say that you can't come in here and have racist ideologies.
I don't mind that at all.
And you're gonna get kicked out. Like I welcome racists.
You need to get some racists in here.
I don't.
Right.
You have to find a way to get some.
There are racists in here, Nivik. They don't come on to. They've actually. You've probably been in a room with a couple of them.
Okay, you're being upfront, huh?
But this, but you know, my point is that the goal of this whole Discord, the goal of the Pangburn endeavor, is to allow people battlefields to engage in the war of ideas, and even if you're engaging in a bad faith way, while engaging in the war of ideas, even if you're engaging in bad faith, it's still minutely increasing your skeptical foundation, even if you're running through cynicismville. Because
wait a minute, you said that they're racist. Nobody said that they're racist. Nobody came out and said, "Hey, I'm a racist."
Yeah, what I said is that you may have already been in a room with some people who are racist, because you don't know, right?
Yeah.
I've already found two.
Yeah. So and the
They
point
need to
is
they need to be more overtly racist then.
Why?
People aren't trying to offend each other here
Not usually.
most of the time.
Well, I think I'm sure that
I
most
think
people's
people
capacity.
are covertly racist anyway.
Get it off your. If you feel a way, get it off your chest.
Well, I think most. I don't think you're. It's going to be hard for you to offend almost anyone who's in this Discord, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
But don't you think most people are covertly racist anyway? That if they're racist,
Well, it's part of our genetic hardware, in a very, very deep part of our survival mechanism to think strangely of things that are different than what we are used to growing up with in our home.
So the better word is bigoted then, because you just have negativities along different things. It doesn't have to be race. It can be other things.
Yeah, you can call it bigotry. Well, this is why I like talking about racism. Instead of talking about racism as a blanket statement, you talk about race-isms. So you have race-isms. Just wait, Nevik. You have race-isms like someone will say, "Oh, I would never suck on a black cock," or on the other side, you'll hear, "I would only ever suck on a black cock. I would never suck on a white cock." Like you have some of these more socially accepted race-isms, but then you have some of the other ones that are not so much. For example, "Oh, I'm never going to hire that guy because he's black." Like that would be something that is actually protected under Western law now.
are we going to get back?
Is it really?
Are we going to get back into the conversation that the term BBC is racist?
Well, it is.
Is it really?
I know.
Yeah,
it is.
it is
because it's saying that for years.
Well, yeah, you're making a racial distinction. See, it is, and this is why I like to call them a race-ism, and then we can kind of measure how much society is okay with this racism versus that one. And that BBC thing, or anything to do with racial selection with regards to your sexuality, tends to be very socially accepted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down with the brown.
Skeptic77 said it's racist to not suck a black cock? Question mark. But
no,
yeah,
it's racist to be like, I mean, in my term, it's like, that's not a novelty. When guys come sideways at me like that, I'm like, your black cock's not a novelty, dude. I was married to a black dude for 29 fucking years. Put your dick away. White dudes have just as big a cocks.
Yeah,
Okay,
on the individual experiential perspective, it's just going to be like every male. Your any kind of statistic saying that the general mean across the scope of the whole world, you're going to find bigger cocks in the black race than you are in Asians. But this is a lesson in statistics for everyone out there. If you're going cock hunting, you should expect the variations between individuals to be much greater than the variations between races. So that's what people really need to realize about race-based statistics, is that it doesn't do anything for you on a individualistic perspective. But isn't it funny that in this
it's to divide people.
In this era we're in, where people are so obsessed with group identity that they try to steer people away from judging someone by the content of their character and not by the content, but by their skin color. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Kind of funny.
People are different through diversity, through who they are.